Yo.
Okay, do the intro.
What? Hello everyone. This is Team Adventurous, and I am Kate, and this is. Wait, where am I pointing? I don't know. I don't do air traffic control. That's Zack, and
Just
Mason,
everyone just point in
and-
different directions.
Yeah. No. Yeah. This is why I'm not the lead adventurer.
Over here, where in the opposite direction of where I pointed, because camera reversal. That's Mason in the Dark. You can go to his YouTube channel at Mason in the Dark. He does all kinds of content around literature. He also has this series Talk To, which is a comedic kind of satire universe. He's building. It's very expansive and very hilarious. Definitely go check him out if you enjoy laughing.
Which I don't personally. That's overrated. Welcome to the adventure.
Justice would say.
Welcome to the adventure, where we're taking a look at important topics today, like the UK energy crisis, and also, why do they call it retail therapy when it's so fucking stressful?
Yes. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
One of those two things we're not actually talking about, and I'll leave you to guess which one.
I think the title of the video might be a bit of a spoiler, Mason.
Yeah, you're like, okay, they titled it this way. It means they're not talking about that.
Exactly. When you go into a textbook that's like the anatomy of the heart, of course they're going to be telling you how to brew a coffee.
Of course, that's how it works.
Maybe in the People's Republic of Love and Freedom.
Oh no, coffee is not allowed in the People's Republic of Love, Peace and Freedom.
Exactly.
I love that the name of that place just keeps getting longer and longer, by the way.
It's a beautiful aspect of the gag, to be sure.
Yes.
All right. So okay. This is kind of a reaction stream, but not really. Like, we're going to be talking about it. And I just feel it's helpful because I'm not totally familiar with what's going on in the UK because I'm an American, and Mason's not totally familiar with it because he doesn't pay attention.
There are certain things that are impossible to not pay attention to, and today's topic is something that falls into that camp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, for any Americans who might be watching that did not know, the UK is having some fucking energy troubles. We're gonna listen to my main British man that isn't Mason, Paul Joseph Watson, talk about it.
What's it feel like looking at those energy bills? Like looking into the sun, I imagine. But surely it was all worth it to support the current thing and save the planet. Food prices are rising at the fastest pace in 40 years. We're now experiencing shortages of staple vegetables. Many Americans will be forced this winter to choose between putting food on the table and paying their bills. 5 million have fled to Mexico to escape rent prices that have soared 25% in 2 years.
In San Diego, my apartment was probably $2,500
for a one bedroom.
For studio.
For studio.
Here, I have a one bedroom and I pay $800 a month.
The prospect of stagflation looms ominously. What is the Biden administration doing in response? Telling poor
what
people...
is stagflation?
What was that?
What is stagflation? Please treat me like I'm 5 years old, because that's how old I am mentally.
So, I think what he's doing there, that's actually a new term to me too. I'm guessing at this, but if I had to guess, and this is an educated guess because I pay attention to this shit, he's talking about how there's simultaneous stagnant growth of the economy, no new jobs being created, economic recession at the same time as inflation is skyrocketing.
It's a term from the 1970s. Persistent high inflation combined with high unemployment rates and stagnant demand in a country's economy.
Did I not hit the nail on the head?
Yep.
As much as I hate to admit it, yes, you did. And okay, that's much clearer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That was literally just a guess.
Yep. But look, people, it's an actual word.
Yeah. Okay.
Rise their homes,
You can get your home entirely weatherized.
telling them to get embroiled in even more debt.
Yes, because if you can't afford your energy costs, just spend tens of thousands of dollars to make your home weatherproof.
Yes.
Even
that
I admit
makes
that that's
sense.
stupid.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're like,
Exactly.
oh, you can't afford gas? Buy a Tesla.
By buying solar panels.
So
It's funny, Caitlin, because he makes that point later in this video.
you don't have to have the big outlay at the front.
Because as everyone knows, solar panels work great in winter. Telling them to buy electric vehicles.
I'm excited about the electric vehicle provisions because what this will do is reduce the price through tax credits of an electric vehicle.
God, I hate that
Slight
slimy
problem
son
with
of a
that.
bitch.
Manufacturers just massively upped the price of electric vehicles, completely wiping out the tax credit.
If you filled up your EV by charging and you filled up your gas tank with gasoline and you have the same size tank, you would save $60.
You can't have the same size tank because an EV doesn't have a tank. It has a battery, you stupid bitch.
Per fill up by going electric.
Inflammatory language.
Well,
It's like
am I wrong, though? She's getting a basic fundamental fact wrong about the thing she's advocating for. That's stupid, Mason. If
Yeah.
you're going to advocate for something, know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I just would have called her a silly sausage instead.
Listen, man, calling people stupid bitch is one of my favorite things to do. I even have a funny way I say it sometimes when I'm trying to be like slightly comedic and I'm not actually insulting them. I'm just like giving them shit. I'm like, you stupid bitch.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an absolutely 100% useful term, especially when it's applied to people like Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
If there was ever a stupid bitch.
Oh yeah, full agreement there. That guy's an absolute fucking piece of shit. God damn it, I'm getting a call. 1 second.
I love how I'm very hesitant to take political stances. I'm 100% okay with being like, yeah, Boris Johnson, stupid bitch. Like there are certain places where I'm not afraid to stand, and I hate Boris Johnson
is one of
yeah,
them.
yeah, that's one of the places where I will stand and wave from that place.
Yeah.
With a big sign
sorry,
that says,
I
I'm
missed all
here.
that. What? A big sign. Wait, what is this about? I feel like so much sound.
I was just saying I think it's funny that I'm so hesitant to take strong political stances, but I'm all in on being like, yeah, fuck Boris Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's safe ground to stand on. The guy's a piece of shit.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh well, go ahead. No, if you want to make a point, go ahead.
No. I was going to make a sarcastic point about putting electricity in tanks, but okay.
I want to hear it.
No, I was just going to pretend that I thought it was supposed to go into a tank, but you pressed play, and then it was just like, okay, the moment's gone, and then you made me explain it anyway. So
I'm not trying to be an asshole.
I know you just are.
No, he's not an asshole. He has one.
He's not an asshole. He's just a
big old sphincter.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a really silly name. Just trying to think of like an asshole equivalent of silly sausage.
Well,
anyway,
big smelly willy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're a smelly willy end.
Dollars in the first place and rising. If you're in a financial situation where gas prices cause you sleepless nights,
and
how on earth are you possibly supposed to be able to purchase an EV?
A lot of people can't afford a $60,000 electric car, and they also are having a hard time affording gas right now. That sounds like a painful transition.
And it doesn't matter how many times Wikipedia massages the definition of recession.
By massage, they mean retconning reality to try to fit their narrative.
America
Yes.
is already in one. Already cash-strapped Americans heading into a recession, whacked by runaway inflation, aren't just going to have a spare 67 grand lying around, are they? Sure, the average cost of an
Really,
electric...
I have that taped under my mattress. I don't trust that.
Oh yeah, man, 67 grand. Fuck, I got that in my wallet right now. Don't you know?
I mean, I have that much. I have that plus so much extra that I'm basically just willing to burn the 67.
Oh yeah, I wipe my ass with 20s, bro.
Yeah. I use 50s to roll joints.
Yeah. Don't you know? Money
Actually,
is
the low-key, most gangster thing you could possibly do.
because don't you know? Money is the easiest thing you can come by.
Yeah. Oh my god. That someone actually, for context, Mason, someone actually said that to me in my Discord, and I was just livid. I actually timed him out. I actually used admin powers to silence this guy because he was pissing me off so much.
That sounds like censorship to me.
I didn't want to do it, but he made me do it. He was shit. I couldn't take it anymore. I was getting viscerally angry.
Timmy, I didn't want to do this, but you made me.
You made me do it, Timmy.
Also, the most annoying thing about that whole situation is that you can't actually use money to roll joints with anymore because they've made it plastic, and inhaling plastic fumes is bad.
Oh no, ours is still made of cotton. Thank God.
We still have a good chunk of cotton. Well, there's in the newer hundreds, for example, there's some plastic because that's how they put in the little anti-copy IDs. Those are plastic kind of chips, you can think of them. But a good chunk of the bill itself is still cotton. Yeah. Anyways.
Than the median household income in Michigan. But really, should you peasants even be allowed to drive those gas guzzlers anyway?
To finally get my electric vehicle, I got it and drove it
bitch.
From Michigan to here this last weekend. And
I'm a rich politician and I can afford an EV, so why can't you, peasant?
I can afford a silent car that I can mow down blind people with because they can't hear it coming when they're crossing the road.
Right.
I never even thought of that aspect of the situation, but you're absolutely right.
Well, I fucking did, I tell you that.
I believe you.
The reason I like Hummers so much is they're so fucking loud. I can hear them coming all the way down the street.
It's like, I know what this is.
You'd like my Honda too. I mean, it's a little sporty coupe, but it's got a 6-cylinder and a dual exhaust. And it is it purrs, but it's definitely you definitely hear it.
I like it when wannabe boy racers fit those things on their exhaust that make them like sound like they're backfiring because it just lets me know they're coming.
Yeah,
really useful.
Bro, real talk. That's an issue around here. People pimping out their exhaust to make it sound like there's guns going off, and they drive around slamming onto their gas pedal at fucking 3 a.m.
I'm a very jumpy person, and when that happens, you should see me, man. I'm like a fucking squirrel. I'm ready to just ready to just run. It's impossible, man. I'm jumpy as fuck. So when a loud noise happens, I'm like, Lee, save me!
I just had this mental image of you and Lee are walking along normal as can be. You got your cane, and then one of those cars goes by, and they slam on their gas, and it's just like 10 feet from your head. That muffler booms, and you literally jump into Lee's arms and bridle carry.
It's more or less accurate.
Really, shouldn't you be suffering a little pain at the pump for your eco indiscretion?
Of course, the more pain we are all experiencing from the high price of gas, the more benefit there is for those
burn in hell
electric vehicles.
Shouldn't you be forced to make sacrifices?
Wow.
Is that inflammatory enough for you, Mason?
I mean, well, there's literal flames in that statement, so it's pretty inflammatory.
Oh, and don't you dare question any of this disastrous green transition, by the way, or you'll face the wrath of the unholy alliance of the Biden administration and big tech.
Understanding the values of solar energy, the values of wind energy, the benefits of clean energy. We have to get tighter.
Please help us. We invested a whole bunch of money money into this, and now we're having to eat our shirts. Save us, please.
I mean, we do need to find more sustainable ways to power things, but I do understand where you're coming from.
That's where I was about to say. The cleanest, safest, most sustainable energy is nuclear, and the left rails against that with every fiber of their being. So I don't want to hear all you fucking liberals talk about how you're the party of science and you follow the data and you're all scientific and shit when it is statistically and data-based unequivocally true. Nuclear is safest, least expensive, most efficient, has the lowest climate impact, and is the most fucking sustainable for the long term because you can renew nuclear materials.
Well, I think that... Go on, continue.
I was just gonna say, don't fucking tell me that solar panels and fucking wind and shit is about green energy. You don't give a fuck about green energy.
I mean, I do personally, but
you do.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I think maybe the problem with nuclear and why people are so why people rail against it is it's just, from an average person point of view, it's fucking scary. Like I'm totally willing to agree with you that it's a great source of energy. Unfortunately, the byproducts are fucking terrifying. You know, like the possibility of nuclear weapons and you know, and when you look at things like you know, like Fukushima and Chernobyl or Chernobyl. I never know how to fucking pronounce that word.
Chernobyl.
Stupid foreign words. Why can't we just pronounce it in English? But yeah, it's just I think that it's just it probably comes from a place of just being, you know, maybe not understanding it 100% like I do, and maybe being a bit terrified of it in certain ways, like I am. But yeah, it's in terms of an energy source. Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
I understand all those concerns. There's definitely, look, I'm not gonna lie. When nuclear goes wrong, it's catastrophic. There's no doubt about that. However, since Chernobyl and some of the other major meltdowns, containment procedures and technology have gone so far ahead in terms of the materials we can manufacture, the engineering itself, like how they lay these structures out, the software and hardware that powers and runs these mainframes that control the reactor. All that shit has gotten so much more advanced that now the odds of another Chernobyl, even in a less developed country, the odds of another Chernobyl are just so unlikely. I mean, it is not a big fucking concern.
Okay, so I'll suggest my solution to green energy, right? So okay, so you guys are like let's just call you the Global Energy Council, right? And I'm just we're in a room and I've rocked up and the guy's like, and now here's Mason 80 to propose his pitch for the solution to the energy crisis. And what I'll say is, what we need to do is, well, I think we need to find a way to harness masturbation energy. I mean, let's face it, men alone, if we can figure out how to harness the potential energy created by men masturbating upwards of 6 times a day, that's that's a sustainable, renewable source of energy that we can all get behind. Not in front of, because you don't want to get covered in the byproduct of that of that energy source.
Mason, fuck you. Trying to have a serious intellectual discussion here, fucking about the global energy crisis that might kill thousands of millions of people, and you're like, what if we could harness jerk off power?
You can't legitimately tell me that if we could actually figure out how to harness that power, that it wouldn't be a great source of power, because you are wrong. But if we listen, real talk. If we're going to do these topics, there's a lot of darkness in these topics, and I'm here to offer you the silly sausage light, okay? And you will have to accept that I will be stupid and silly in these situations. I'm not going to be 100% serious 100% of the time because it's impossible.
You know that I'm not actually mad, so I don't know why.
I know.
I don't know why that was necessary.
I was seeing all of that with a massive grin on my face. I just don't think it translated to my voice very well.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we got to get through this video. We got we are actually trying to get through this topic.
We have to get better at communicating. And frankly, the tech companies have to stop allowing specific individuals over and over again to spread disinformation.
And besides, wasn't all this
You mean
Putin's
like
fault
Google?
anyway?
Start going up as soon as Putin starts intervening in the energy market in Europe. No, they actually weren't.
Sure they
were going up. They were going. No, that's just factually not true.
It factually, and you can't see it, Mason, but then we see a graph on screen that says that dude literally just lied through his teeth.
Yeah, it is true, and here's a graph proving it. You might be able to get CNN or Wikipedia to change the definition of recession to cover your asses, but you can't censor historical gas price charts. Not yet, anyway. And let's pause there because I have an exciting...
Wait, what were they saying? That the energy prices were going up before Ukraine, was that?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I figured.
And yeah.
It's no exaggeration to say that things are getting scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt just hit a record $30 trillion. And inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. They're basically burning your cash, torching your family's finances. You're going to let them destroy everything you
Okay, he's about to do a plug for his sponsor, so this is a good time for us to talk over him. So, yeah, man, and he's about to get into the UK side of this, too. But this is just demonstrative that the fucking course that so many world governments are taking on energy policy is just having disastrous effects for average people. I mean, like you said, people are going to be freezing to death because they have to choose between energy to heat their homes and food.
Well, I think it's also demonstrative that whoever is in charge, whichever side they're on, whether you have a conservative government, whether you have over here, and whether you have Democrats over there, the people in charge, for the most part, don't have your interest at heart.
No.
They have corporate interests to protect. And this is what happens when you elect governments that have those interests.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And there's a few ways. I don't know how the government is structured over there, but over here in the States, over here in the States, there's a few things that can be done to instantly fix that problem. You put term limits on every federal position. If they're in the federal government, I don't care if it's the guy who sweeps the floors at the White House, his term is limited to 10 years. No one in government longer than 10 years, with sole exception to military personnel, so we can hold on to our best military minds. Next, you make it so that corporations and lobbying groups cannot fund political campaigns. And then 3, you make all political donations 100% transparent, and you make all legal proceedings in the House and Senate 100% transparent. Like, I mean, live camera feed 24/7, and bills and legislation can't be longer than 5 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Going back to the political structure over here, I'm pretty sure the way that our government is built is it's like a pyramid of jack-in-the-boxes, and any one of them can go off at any time and just topple the others.
Right?
No, you are all fucked.
He's going to get to the UK stuff here shortly.
Gold.com. You've seen how much I get demonetized. The best way of supporting
yeah, Paul, come on.
my sponsor. So click the link in the description for paullikesgold.com.
Yes.
Now back
And
to
also,
the video.
everybody watching, like and subscribe to him.
Yes, I do want to say, like, genuinely, go support my boy Paul. Like,
yeah,
common fucking sense incarnate, but he's also spicy.
Yes.
Turning off the street lights. In Spain, indoor air conditioning can't be dropped below 27 degrees Celsius. Right now, at the height of summer, still spare a thought for those poor Germans. Their energy crisis is so dire. Governments are having to create warm-up spaces in cities to save people who can't pay their bills from freezing to death this winter.
Which might be happening over here as well. I've heard talks of warm banks being proposed over here as well. She's just fucking insane.
Yeah,
not the fact that they would be created, just the fact that they need to be created in the first place.
Right. Yeah. No one wants anyone to freeze to death. Definitely, if they need to be there, build the warm banks. But the fact that they need to be, it is a monumental failing of the people who are supposed to be running the world that this is even a discussion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing with Spain not being able to like drop their air conditioning. I mean, that's if you just break it down to like my stupid level, and I'm being 100% serious with this. Surely that's bad for the economy, just in terms of people are going to go out and go to these public spaces less because it's uncomfortable. I know if my local Costa, which I visit all the time because I'm just an absolute coffee addict, if that place, I mean, some days I avoid it anyway because they don't have their aircon on and it's too fucking hot in there.
Yeah.
And if it was at the point where they were legally not allowed to have aircon on or have it at a comfortable temperature, in the summer, I don't think I'd go there. So surely it's got to be bad for the economy, just from the standpoint of people are going to shop less because they're going to be uncomfortable whilst doing so.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good point. And the other point is, now here's a counterpoint I have that actually this is not something a conservative would typically say, but this is something I genuinely believe because people are pussies. Here's the thing. When you're talking about summer heat, even if it does get bad, summer heat is much less of a threat to people, okay? If we have no AC, well, as long as the person is hydrated and able to find shade, we're not really going to have anyone dying from summer heat. As long as clean water is available, that's pretty much just not going to happen unless the person has a pre-existing medical condition. In terms of winter, people fucking freeze to death because modern shelters were not designed with not having internal heating in mind.
Yeah.
They're not insulated enough for people inside to survive winter in many cases. The person, like, to survive winter nights in some parts of the world in a modern house, you would literally have to be under multiple blankets cuddled with someone for there to be enough heat to make it through the night, even remotely comfortably.
I mean, 1 second. Okay. I mean, looking at it from the point that I just raised, that was from like a consumer standpoint, right? And that's fine if you, with what you're saying, yeah, okay. If I go into Costa and it's a bit too hot, I just make the choice not to do that, which whether or not that's bad for the economy or not is a different issue. But if you actually look at it from a workforce point of view, yeah, okay, I either don't go there, or if I do go there, it's not that bad for that long. What about the person that's got to pull, an 8-9 hour shift in there,
right?
And they've got to put up with that heat all day, and the cold in the winter as well. Either way, they've got to put up with the uncomfortable temperatures all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of well, hang on, Caitlin. I just want to make an accessory point to his. And an accessory point to that is especially unique to people who work in the food service industry because they are around machines that produce a ton of heat.
Yeah.
So Mason has a uniquely valid point for food workers and other people in industries where they're around machinery that is hot all day. And so that's a good point.
Yeah.
And what were you going to say, Kate?
I was just going to say, which is why, like, being here, our food service industry, there are like rules and regulations that have to be followed, like when we had the air go out at Starbucks when I was working there, or when I was doing other serving jobs, anytime that the air went out, they immediately called people to have people come and fix it and check it out, because there were regulations about, people not working so many hours in that kind of an environment with no air circulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some states have stuff like that, and some states don't. Yeah. That's one of the great things about the United States is we have states that are able to make those decisions and regulate according to what their people need and the environment they're in. You need to have it that way when a country is as big as ours.
Yeah, that's actually a decent point that I've never thought of before, because I've always been kind of confused by how the individual states work and stuff. But that's actually a really good point in different places needing different regulations and stuff. Because if you just taking it to the extreme, if you're looking at Alaska and Florida, those two places are going to need different regulations because they're like entirely different environments. So yeah, that's a fair point.
That's actually, it's one of the main things, and that's something like you just illustrated, Mason. That's something a lot of other countries don't understand about our country. There aren't many countries. Actually, America is actually pretty fucking unique in the fact of how big we are and where exactly on the globe we are. So Russia's bigger than us, but it's all extremely north. It's all almost identical environment. The United States, because of where it is on the map, we have exceedingly different landscapes across one extreme to the next. And so a unified government top down would never work here.
Yeah.
It would not work. And that's one of the reasons the federalist system, where individual states can make decisions, is one of the reasons that the US rose to be a superpower, is because when you decentralize power and have a cooperative mindset, amazing things happen.
See, whereas I can't really see that working too well over here, just because the landmass that we're living on, if you take Britain as a whole into account, that's not really going to work as well, because we pretty much are all living more or less in the same environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think a federalist approach would be necessarily the ideal approach for you guys. For one, there's cultural things that have to be considered, and like you just said, the environment is pretty unilateral. So it's not right for everyone, but certainly, certainly if your country is as big as ours, it definitely. I even think a similar system might be good for Russia, just because obviously over on Western Russia, there's going to be some cultural drift to all the way over on Eastern Russia. And so having a certain level of federalism allows people to have a sense of identity in their region, which is good for bravado and national pride and those kinds of things. And those are good for societies. Anyways, we're getting way off topic.
To 19 degrees Celsius. Germans are panic buying firewood, stoves and electric heaters, leading to warnings of a total power grid failure and blackouts due to massive overdemand. After initially being told to stop driving their cars, wear warmer sweaters and take fewer showers, Germans are now being told to use washcloths instead. This from the Green Party's Winfried Kretschmann, another outrageously out-of-touch technocrat, who, while ordering Germans to scrub themselves with filthy rags, brags about his electric car. His, quote, huge photovoltaic system on the roof, and a pellet heating system that is totally unaffordable to the average citizen. Oh yeah, his eco-credentials are beyond question, except for the fact that the wood pellets that heat his home are sourced from forests in southeastern United States, from chopped down trees that take 100 years to grow back, then shipped halfway around the world so Kretschmann can boast about how
And by the way, just this is another place I would probably differ from many conservatives. I don't appreciate my country being deforested to serve other people's heating needs. Well, grow your own fucking trees. I like forests.
Well, I just don't really appreciate the planet in general being deforested. The utter insanity of that statement that he just made. Somebody boasting about how economically friendly they are because they're using, this wood that's been chopped down from a forest shipped around the world. By the way, Guy, you do realise that the shipping container that your wood was bought on was probably powered by fucking gas, right?
Yeah.
You know, and
not only that, Mason, the manufacturer of those wood pellets was fucking petroleum fueled.
Jesus.
This is why I'm so adamantly against your side of the, well, I gotta say the left side, because we're on opposite sides of the ocean, so I'm not really against your side. I'm against my left, my government, my society's left. But this is why I'm so adamantly against them, because the fucking hypocrisy knows no bounds. And I would never say that there are no hypocrites in the Republican Party. That's not true. There's plenty. But more than hypocrites, we have fucking cowards. But they just constantly say one thing and do another. It's how they live in my country, the left.
Yeah. I think it's the difference as well between looking at it on a micro level and a macro level, because the average person probably won't be as hypocritical as somebody somebody who is, rich and powerful and espousing those sort of beliefs is probably, somebody who on the micro level, just the average citizen who holds those beliefs probably, genuinely holds them. Whereas none of us are fooled. People who are seeking power and influence will pretend to hold beliefs because it's, good for their image.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Environmentally friendly he is. The Vice President of the European Commission ordered citizens to fight Putin by riding bikes instead of driving cars and not watching.
That'll show him.
Right, yeah.
Who is paid over $250,000.
Oh no, they are riding bikes. What do I do?
I went to a shop 5 miles down the road, and instead of getting in my car and driving, I rode my bike, just to give the middle finger to that Jack Putin,
Well, I thought my military might was working, but they're riding bikes. They're riding bikes, Dimitri.
They're riding bicycles.
They're riding bikes!
The spinning wheels. The spinning. I can't take it.
The wheels of death go round and round.
Putin waking up in cold sweats after having nightmares of just like the spokes of a bicycle like spinning past him.
Quick, I have to go sit at my exceptionally long table.
There's just like a light. A light on the other side of the wheel, and it's spinning and just rapidly casting like little tiny shadows on his face as it spins, and he wakes up in a cold sweat, and he just turns to whoever he sleeps in bed next to, because I don't know what Vladimir's spousal
a body pillow of himself.
Turns to his body pillow of himself, and he throws his voice so it sounds like the body pillow is talking. It's like, what's wrong, Vladimir? I had the bicycle dream again. Not the bicycle dream. Just go back to sleep, Vladimir.
It was just a dream.
Caitlin. Round like a circle, like a wheel within a wheel.
Never ending or beginning.
Never spinning wheel. Like bicycles that you find in the brains of your mind.
Oh dear. Cutting political satire. Vladimir Putin having nightmares about bicycles and hugging a body pillow of himself.
We're serious intellectuals, we swear.
Yes.
I hope you believe us.
Despite the fact that 60% of German households are using up all their disposable income simply to cover heating, food and rent, Marie-Agnes Zimmermann-Strack says poverty-threatened Germans need to make more sacrifices to support the current thing. Easy for her to say, given that she enjoys a net worth of about 10 million euros. This is what happens when you wreck your energy independence in support of the current thing. In support of catastrophic net zero green energy policies that are totally unfit for purpose. I mean, look at wind turbines, completely useless. Takes more energy to power them than the amount of energy created.
So I'm going to help you out here, Mason. There's an article up here on screen. Madness of our worship of wind. They despoil our glorious countryside. I actually disagree with that. I actually think they're pretty aesthetic, but that's beside the point. Add $6 billion a year to our household bills and are arguably the most inefficient solution to our energy crisis. So why is the government planning to make it even easier to build them? 4% of total bullet point. 4% of total primary demand for energy was supplied by wind power. Wind industry has been fattened on subsidies of more than $6 billion a year. Turbines to be given easier planning process ride than housing or gas drilling.
I mean, in terms of wind and, wind, wave and solar, I think we're just at the crude stage, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like, eventually I think it will get better.
So that's
as technology. Sorry, go on.
Well, no, I was interrupting you. You go on.
As the technology advances, I think that it will get better. With all technology, we just have that crude stage. If you just look at like the advancement of computers, and eventually, we're at the point where we're at now, and I think that that's probably just the case with like the green energy. And yeah, I completely understand all the points that he's making, and I don't think that he's made a bad point yet. But I don't necessarily think that it should be done away with either, because I just think there should be, we should just look into how to make them better.
I agree with you, but I'm sure you would also agree that crude stage technology should not be forced down the throat of the populace to replace much superior technology, especially at the cost of people's comfort or lives.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And now you said a lot of people don't usually include wave, and I'm glad you did, because I personally think that wave energy is one of the most promising potential solutions to all of this. It would actually, if we could get it perfected, it would be better than nuclear. 100% renewable, absolutely, like the safest thing you could possibly imagine. Constant 24/7 supply, absolutely fucking great energy solution. The only problem is right now wave energy is limited by the materials we have. The ocean is just too hard on materials. So we need something that's corrosion resistant and will withstand a lot of force.
Well, you know what we need, don't you?
What?
Another space race. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the end of the day, if you look at the world we live in right now exists because the space race happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh yeah. No. I immediately understood the point you were making. It's a great point. It's a great point. It's actually one of the most insightful points I've heard you make. It's very good.
Yeah.
Last one to Mars is a rotten egg.
Yeah, that's another thing. People that whine about Elon trying to go to Mars. It's like, do you have any idea how beneficial that could be? They're like, save this planet. Going to Mars could save this planet. Are you stupid?
Yeah, because a byproduct of trying to get there could be the thing that saves this planet.
Yeah, it's a smooth brain argument. But anyways, yeah. So, he's about to make a great point about wind that I want.
Hated by them. They're not even environmentally friendly. They're manufactured using the chemical sulfur hexafluoride, SF6, which according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it's 26,087 times more harmful to the climate than carbon dioxide. This stuff
also makes your voice really deep.
Are you being serious or fucking with me?
No, the hexafluoride does the same thing as helium, but in reverse.
In reverse,
Cool.
Yeah.
Like in a toxic way.
Narcosis and respiratory arrest. They're detecting higher and higher levels of it over, you guessed it, Germany. But it's not enough for arrogant technocrats to constantly lecture worried Germans about their energy use. Those expressing just a little bit too much concern are now being demonized as domestic extremists. The interior minister of the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, Herbert Rule, monstered people planning to protest against coming energy blackouts as, quote, enemies of the state who want to overthrow the government. Get fucked. Yeah, I'm sure the single mother cautiously lighting her last candle after the power company cut off her supply as she frantically wraps up her baby trying to keep it warm isn't really concerned about the blackouts. She's actually a dangerous right-wing conspiracy theorist who wants to initiate right.
In all fairness, though, like, just breaking that down a little bit, if the state is the one that is fucking up that person's life, are they not an enemy of the state in that situation?
That's a fun little bit of the fun little bit of philosophy and semantics to get into, because technically speaking, by definition, you would be right. And it would also be true that in this case, the enemy of the state is the right side.
No, yeah. I totally agree. If the state is if the state is the thing that's fucking everything up, and you are an enemy of the state, then that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No,
exactly. The people in power and the media love to paint anyone who's against the state as being dangerous, and it's like, no, the state is dangerous. I'm not being an asshole because I want to stay armed so the state can't come and arrest me for not wearing a mask. You're the asshole for telling me that I have to wear a mask to participate in society, especially even if I have a fucking medical reason why I can't wear one. Go fuck yourself.
I'm gonna impose what are they fucking called, like an amount. I'll just use the word amount, like a quota of inflammatory language that you're allowed to use. They're like, right, you get 10 inflammatory points. once you've used them, you're not allowed to use them anymore.
Oh.
I'm really kidding. I know you wouldn't fucking let that happen.
I was about to say, good luck enforcing that. That was literally, I had that halfway through your little spiel there, I had that reply loaded up. I was like, good luck.
Well, I know, that's why I cut you off with it.
Yeah.
Top official Stephen Kramer says this winter's energy riots will make anti-lockdown protests look like a children's birthday party in comparison. He foresees civil unrest on a massive scale. Social disorder is also brewing in Britain, where there's a growing movement for people to simply cancel their direct debits and stop paying their bills altogether. Energy bills are expected to soar to over £6,500 by next April. That's 6 times what they were earlier this year. For millions upon millions of people, that's simply unaffordable. Over a third of the country will slide into poverty. EDF's Philippe Commaret says Britain faces a dramatic and catastrophic energy crisis in the coming months. Some are even calling for the government to freeze energy bills for 2 years at a cost of £100 billion. It all seems to be pointing in the direction of utter chaos. Campaigner Tom Scott.
I mean, where does it stop though? If they don't impose some sort of limit or some sort of cap, where does it stop? Surely we can't just allow a situation in which they can just keep on rising and rising, because it's just insane when you get to the point where people who are working full-time jobs, man, hard-working people, still can't afford to pay their bills. Something's wrong and something has to be done.
Oh yeah. I totally agree. Now, here's based on what you just said, here's where we disagree. The disagreement might resolve as we rattle through this. But a cap, quote unquote, is not the way to fix the problem. You cannot impose artificial caps and limits on a capitalist-based economy, or even really any economy. Really, historically speaking, there's been no economic model that has successfully tolerated the government imposing artificial caps. It's just not viable. The way to fix this problem is, so we were actually talking about this off screen, but this is a good place to bring it back up. The viable solution is strategic deregulation, and making it so that energy companies can operate efficiently to produce their product. and not impose, and a lot of that is not having such a weighted deck for one side of the energy spectrum. Green energy is not producing people's energy needs, so stop subsidizing green energy. Stop pouring billions and billions of your government's money into green energy. And how about this? Just don't give government money to any private entity. How about that? How about that? And just make it so the market is able to operate and energy costs will stabilize. And the other part of that too is stop importing your energy. If you have access to natural gas, which by the way burns extremely cleanly, it's basically zero emissions. If you have access to methane reserves or crude oil reserves, let your energy companies drill for them.
Well, and I'm going to say this. I don't necessarily know how it works, but surely some sort of, just pay people what they need. Like wages should reflect how much. People shouldn't be getting wages that simply don't add up to the cost of living.
I agree with you, but then there's so that's a separate aspect of the argument to get into. I believe that a certain minimum wage is a good idea because we know for a fact that greed is a thing, and people will just have the absolute lowest possible wage as the starting wage for their company, so they can pay people as little as possible. That's definitely a thing that would happen. So a minimum wage does make sense to prevent corporations from abusing their workforce. I'll concede that as a reasonable policy. However, we also can't make that wage too high because that puts undue stress on the bottom line of businesses and every business, for 99% of businesses, their biggest expense is employment of labor. The better solution is to deregulate businesses as much as possible. Now, it's important to note, because of something Mason was talking about earlier, when you deregulate, you have to consider the regulations you're removing very carefully. And sometimes a regulation doesn't need to be removed, but rewritten. So it's clearer or easier to comply with for the business, but the regulation is still serving its purpose. Things like this need to happen so that businesses can run efficiently. And when businesses are able to run efficiently, they generate more revenue, and then they are able to raise their wages. And we saw this when Trump did his tax cuts. The left in America loves to lie about this, but despite what they constantly lie and say, the average employee got a raise during because of the Trump tax cuts. I heard so many people talk about the fat fucking bonus that they're not even their wages went up, but they literally just got like $1,000 bonus because the company was like, all right, as a celebration of the Trump tax cut, everyone's getting $1,000. Awesome. Good talk, everyone. Like, that happened for millions of Americans.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that tax cuts aren't good for the working people? Shut the fuck up. So many medium to small businesses fucking gave their employees a shit ton more money because they got a corporate tax cut.
Yeah. And they would if they were, allowed to do things like that more often.
I agree to a certain point. I also don't think I think a lot of like massive corporations wouldn't necessarily do it just out of choice. And I do think that there should be a more healthy balance in terms of wages when it comes to the top and the bottom of a company. Do I think that a CEO should earn more than just an average worker in a corporation? Yeah, I do to a point, but I don't think that it should be quite as high.
So I would agree with you to a certain extent on that. Like, for example, a CEO making $80 billion a year will just be exceedingly, well, I'm not going to be exceedingly ridiculous because it minimizes my point. So let's say a billion. Let's say a CEO is making $1 billion a year. Okay. And at the lowest level, he has janitors, we'll say, well, actually janitors are usually paid pretty good. We'll say front desk workers. So the receptionist is making minimum fucking wage. I absolutely would be okay with a law stating that the CEO's maximum possible wage can only be X percent of the lowest earner in the companies. That would ensure that the company was distributing its profits evenly across its workforce. And I think that would be a viable, it's not quite middle of the road. That actually runs pretty far socialist. But in this day and age, this is something I differ with conservatives on. I see the obscene accumulation of wealth, and I say this is immoral. This person is literally hoarding wealth like a fucking gold hoard, like a dragon sitting on top of its treasure hoard. And it's on principle, I have to say that person has a right to do it. If you earn your wealth and this is what your employer, the company, is paying you for your job, then that's your wealth and you have a right to that. But at some point, isn't it reasonable to say, okay, your mountain of gold is high enough, time to throw a few coins to the people who fucking live paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah, who genuinely need it. They're not
Yeah.
just asking for handouts, they just want to feed their children.
Right. Yeah, like I'm saying, like I said, it's from the gold hoard of the CEO down to the fucking people answering the phones and scrubbing the floors. Just, 1% of his fucking wealth or his income, his annual income distributed across the bottom rung of wage earners in that company. That could be an extra $1 per hour. For that improvement in pay would be a game changer for millions of people. And that's an unreasonable policy. Like, come on, no, it's not. It's socialist. I'll concede it's a socialist policy, but it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, I agree. I think I saw. I hate saying about like figures and stuff because I'm not entirely sure where I saw it now, and I don't know whether it was just US centric or not. But I think I saw something about CEOs earning like 350 times what like just the average worker is earning, and to me 350 times just seems obscene.
Yeah. So let's use that example. Perfect example. Let's cap what the CEO makes at 200% of the lowest earning employee in the company. He's able to make 200% of what the lowest paid person makes annually. So if that guy wants to make more, he is now motivated to raise the average employee's wages, hire more people so that he can expand the company's operation, make the company more efficient so that he can, again, the company's more efficient. Now it has more resources. Now he can hire more people. Now he can expand and raise wages. All of this creates more wealth. So the CEO is now, unlike the current model where CEOs can just fuck off and still make shit tons of money. This actually provides a real hard line incentive because the CEO's wealth potential is capped according to what his lowest earners are making, and that forces him to have their best interest at heart, unlike the current model where CEOs can shit on their lowest tier employees with zero consequence.
Yep, and it automatically puts them in a mindset to where, hey, this corporate culture is, in order to prosper yourself, you have to have it in mind to prosper other people first.
Yeah. And from the other angle, this motivates the average man to have interest and investment in the quality of his work. Okay, if I actually am productive and I make the company more money because the company will then expand, I'm motivated to make more, to be more productive because the company will expand and my wages will go up. it returns the incentive to be a good employee to the American public, which has been an incentive that's been gone for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you know what I love about this discussion, this little thing we've just proposed, guys? I've literally never heard this idea anywhere else. I think this belongs to us.
Adventurous policies.
That's right.
Literally. I mean, look, I'm hard right on most things, but I'm also a Christian, and I believe that the obscene hoarding of wealth is inherently immoral. And like I said, I have this principle of what the wealth you earn is yours, but there's no reason that we as a society should allow people to hoard untold billions while there's people in our society that can't afford to feed themselves. That doesn't make sense.
Yep, I don't have any arguments against that or any silly remarks either.
But anyways, back to the fucking source of the fucking the video.
Civil unrest on a par with the poll tax riots, because in sheer frustration at being unable to afford to live, Brits will take their anger to the streets. The poll also found that a majority of Brits, 51%, think there will be cost of living riots later this year. Globalist Great Reset technocrats admit that they're obsessed with forcing you to stomach the green transition.
At the Department of Energy, we are really obsessed with how we get to net zero by 2050.
EU technocrat Diederik Samson let slip the truth when he stated, quote, energy will be more expensive as of now. Energy was way too cheap
as of now.
40 years. And in order to save the planet, quote, we need to pay more for energy and also for food.
Okay, this guy's a fucking idiot. So, Mason, I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, but just for the purpose of the audience, Jordan Peterson was on the UN Council for Economic Growth and Sustainability. And the UN Council did an extensive, I think they researched this for a year, the most sustainable path forward for the planet and the human population. And what they found unequivocally after many hundreds of thousands of man hours researching the issue was that the best way to make the planet as sustainable and environmentally protected as possible is to raise everyone out of poverty as soon as possible. You don't do that by making food and energy more expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has a great video talking about this. Go over to his channel, Jordan Peterson. He wrote a great article where he breaks down step by step why that is the case. And when you hear him explain it and break it down, it's really irrefutable.
Oh, they'll continue to live like kings. Don't worry about that. While you shiver under your blanket, nibbling on your bug rations. Author Thomas Fawsey warns civil disobedience is coming. As economic policies have become tailored to the interests of a handful of immensely powerful mega corporations, any sense of the collective or national interest was lost. A small elite was allowed to accrue immense wealth and power while laying waste to our society's workforce, industrial capacity, public services, and vital infrastructures, leaving our countries poorer, weaker, and dependent on foreign and increasingly hostile nations for the supply of everything from energy to food to basic medical supplies. Winter is coming, and without doubt, it's going to be a winter of discontent. How are you preparing for the potential financial bedlam that is waiting around the corner? I'll be reading your responses in the comments below.
I'm just going to put on all the weight that I lost and just have the natural blanket that I used to have.
It's funny you say that, Mason, because I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life right now, both muscle and fat. I've had a little bit more fat than I have now, but not much. At my fattest, I maybe had like one or two, maybe 5% more body fat. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm at my heaviest now, and I'm genuinely curious, like, am I going to get as cold as I used to get during the winter? Because generally speaking, I freeze. But like I'm 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. I'm heavy now.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience, this has been the most comfortable summer that I've had in years, and I'm actually kind of curious to see how I react to winter, because usually I'm fine, but now that I'm lighter than I've been in many, many years, I'm expecting to be a bit colder than usual this year, and I'm actually quite looking forward to it because I'm done with summer. I'm done with it, Zach. I hate the sun. Can we blow it up, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I like summer and I like winter. I don't like spring. I don't like fall, but I like summer and I like winter.
See, I'm completely opposite. I really like spring and autumn. Autumn probably more because it's cooling down rather than heating up. I really like, and obviously we live in completely different environments, so it'll be different. But I really like the temperature sort of around spring autumn time because it's like cool and warm enough, but not too hot and not too cold, and it's just right in the Goldilocks zone for me.
Yeah,
that's fair. And I guess thinking about it, it's not quite accurate to say that I like summer and I like winter. I like the weather that is truly my favorite is a deep winter and the very beginning of summer and the very end of summer. I don't like the middle brutal part of summer, but right in like that sweet spot between late spring and early summer where it's beginning to heat up, but there's still a cool breeze. And sometimes I still wake up and there's fog in the morning and the nights are brisk, but they're energized with that like new energy feel. Like I fucking love that. And then at the end of summer when things are still hot, but the nights are now cool enough to go out and really party. Yeah.
I mean it's first world problems, but I'm just sick of summer. For one of the key factors is I'm sick of needing to wash my hair because I'm sweating so much throughout the summer that my hair's just constantly getting greasy. And it wasn't too bad when I just had short hair and it was just like step out of the shower, run the towel through it, and it's done. Now I have to go through like the whole like actually drying my hair and all that sort of balance.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm done with this.
Well, I shower every time I shower. I do my hair, and as Caitlin, my hair is thick. So even though it's only a little past shoulder length, my hair takes like 2 hours to dry, or more, because of how absurdly I have like a dog's fur coat on my head.
My hair's pretty thick, and it's insanely long these days.
I've seen it's like mid back now.
Oh yeah. Yep. I don't have to stretch it far to stretch to my arse.
Yep.
And that brings me to retail therapy, as I promised that we would talk about. I'm just kidding. Sort of. But like, as a guy who mostly wears shorts, right? I've had to buy jeans to go to this wedding party thing that I'm going to. And do you know, as a short man, do you know how hard it is to buy jeans? It's fucking impossible, mate.
Yes.
I've got 24-inch legs. Like, that's the length of my legs. I've got to find jeans that fit me nicely in the waist, but have a short enough leg. And fucking manufacturers think, you're a man, so you must be about 5'10". No, mate. No, I'm 5 inches shorter than that. I'm like right in the middle. Like, it gets to the point where I'm like, do I just buy women's jeans because they fit me better for the most part? And I did for years wear women's jeans because I could actually find ones that fit me.
Oh, lucky, because over here, trying to buy women's jeans that actually fit me as a short person and not awkwardly, it was like playing the lottery.
Yeah.
Well, I want to inform both of you that the same problem exists on the opposite side of the spectrum.
No,
As
someone
who's I'm like 6 feet 1/2 inch, and I'm not quite all legs, but my legs, I have long legs, but they're somewhat proportional to my torso. Any fucking ways. Moot point. The point I want to make is clothing companies think, oh, you're 6 feet tall, so you're fat.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you're 6 feet tall, so your waist has got to be a minimum of 40 fucking inches. And also, they don't fucking understand that people that people work out, and so my ass is huge, but my waist is small. It's like, motherfucker, I need more fabric in the seat, but the waist doesn't need to be 40 inches.
Right. It's like, who do you make these pants for? Trees?
I spot, motherfucker!
Trying to find like a jacket or a shirt to wear was just impossible because I could find ones that fit me like sort of nicely around the torso, but my arms are short. So like every man's jacket that I put on, the arms were just like they were just burying me. In the end, I did get an outfit though. So it's the most money I've spent on clothing in years, and frankly, it was painful. I like buying cheap, comfortable clothes, not expensive, nice-looking, uncomfortable clothes.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. I want my clothes to be reasonably priced, high quality, and comfortable.
Yes.
And after that, I want to make sure they don't look absolutely fucking ridiculous. I'm comfortable with them looking basic and plain, but they can't look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Here's a headline from this morning's Independent.
Okay, so this is the video you sent me, Mason.
It's only dropped 25 minutes ago. It's by the journalist Sonny Hundal, and it says, "Why has it fallen to Martin Lewis to save the British public from rising energy bills?" Well, let's ask the man himself. Martin Lewis, why has it fallen to you to save the British public from rising energy bills?
It hasn't. I'm impotent. That's the problem. I feel impotent today. I'm explaining the situation. I don't have any power to do anything. I am completely out of tools to help the most vulnerable, for whom this is a catastrophic, unaffordable price rise that will leave some dying, many others suffering health and mental health problems. And I thought very carefully today about the approach I take on this. And I've had some criticism from the press for catastrophizing. I plead guilty. I have catastrophized this because it is a catastrophe.
Well said.
I'm now begging and pleading with whomever the new Prime Minister is. It should have been dealt with far sooner. I mean, we've known, I talked about £3,000 October price cap on my TV show. It's recorded back in March. I mean, we've all known this was coming. The price cap is based on a published algorithm with one main variable, which is year ahead wholesale rates. So we've known it was coming. That this is just a crystallization of a number we've been talked about for ages. So all the people saying we need to wait till we know what it is, it's just nonsense. Ofgem would have given the government forward guidance like it did in May if it were asked. So look, it's too late, but that doesn't matter now. I always say, James, the difference between a political activist and someone like me who sees myself as a campaigning journalist is I am not here to try and expose the government failings to ask for a vote. I am here to beg, to plead, to pray that our new Prime Minister understands how urgent this is. And while we've left it late on the 5th of September, on that day, lays out concrete...
I do have to disagree with him. He should be using his political and social clout to put his voice behind a candidate who says, I'm going to do the right thing to fix this.
But there are none. That's the problem. So the reason Boris is no longer in charge is because he literally got to a point where the Conservative Party felt that it was untenable to allow him to continue as Prime Minister. He was ousted with a vote of no confidence. After a mass resignation of MPs was when he eventually stepped down. But that hasn't triggered a general election. It's a leadership election for who is running the Conservative Party, bearing in mind that it's two people that still served in Boris's government. So that there are no candidates that are saying we're going to fix this.
That makes sense. This is a problem. This is part of the reason me and you have a disconnect on some things is you guys, what you call a conservative government over there is a Democrat government here. You guys do not have a real conservative movement as far as any conservative on this side of the pond is concerned.
Well, that's frankly, that's kind of terrifying considering how corrupt I feel the Conservatives are. So,
yeah.
Well, see, over here, it's the exact opposite thing. The Conservatives over there might be rotten to the core, but the people over here that call themselves conservatives, I mean, of course, everyone who is left of them, and that includes Republicans, would disagree with this, but conservatives over here are the least corrupt political group right now. They have the lowest rate of being caught for corruption. They have the lowest rate of lying to their constituents and not at least trying to do what they promised. It's Republican rhinos in the Republican Party and Democrats where all the corruption is.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to Boris, one of the reasons his position became so untenable is that he's not only lying to constituents and to, just the general public, he was actually found to be lying to Parliament. So,
yeah.
No arguments that he's not corrupt.
Oh yeah, no, I would never argue that. Like I said, this is a disconnect in our politics.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Don't mean the same thing. They just don't. The conservatives over there. Well, I mean, for example, one of the main, probably the biggest thing about the political conservative on this side of the water is we believe in making the government as small and helpless as possible. Is that how conservatives over there think?
I'm not. I'll level with you. I don't know.
Okay, I would wager.
I would wager not. No, considering certain things that have been done and said in the last year. For example, Priti Patel, who is a major player in Boris's government, putting forward the police crime and sentencing bill, which effectively outlawed protests. Just like literally not outright saying that they're illegal, but putting forward like saying that they can't be disruptive.
Right.
A protest cannot be disruptive. Okay, so you're effectively just outlawing protests there.
Yeah.
And Rishi Sunak, who is another one of the people who is currently running for Prime Minister against Liz Truss, who said that he will broaden the definition of extremism to include people who criticize the government, basically, because
that is terrifying.
Yeah, well, we have a program over here called Prevent, which is based around anti-terrorism, and people, can be referred to that program for de-radicalization, which,
no.
Well, no. In all fairness, certain aspects of that.
That's Gestapo shit, is what.
Well, no, I do disagree with you, because there are certain aspects of that in which I can see that there are. So this is why I get terrified of this sort of thing. That look, when it comes to people being radicalized and brainwashed, we do need a way of, when it comes to genuine radicalization, in terms of inciting people towards violence and extremism on that end of the spectrum, there does need to be a way to educate those people and try to deprogram the brainwashing that they've been subjected to. But I don't think that should go as far as, if you criticize the government or Britain as a whole, we can broaden the definition of extremism to include you because you are harmful to the country.
Like, okay. See, but things like that, though, that's what that language is it's not beneficial, like therapy or help for people. Them saying, getting rid of brainwashing stuff.
That's not even the main problem, Kate. Go ahead, finish your point, Kate. I want you to finish your point.
No, because what I was saying is that all of that language, you flip it over, what they're actually saying is we are going to be deprogramming people via like brutalizing them mentally so that they think like we do and don't create any kind of dissension anymore.
Any kind of dissent, yeah. Caitlin is hinting at the problem. I want to clarify the root aspect of this problem. The government is not the ones who need to be deciding what people can and can't think and what extreme is.
Right.
The government cannot be trusted with that power.
Well,
every time, historically speaking, that the government decides it's going to get into that business, we end up at genocide camps.
Well, yeah. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think prevent is a good idea because I don't know enough about it. But what I'm talking about in terms of being radicalized is the sort of thing that, you know, people who are going down the path that leads to events like the Manchester bombing. I'm not advocating. I think it's a terrible idea for people to be referred to an anti-terror program for espousing anti-establishment beliefs or criticizing the government or whatever. But there does need to be a way to help. I mean, like, you know, to help the people that have been literally fed like truly harmful dogmas in which they believe they need to kill people.
Okay, I agree with you in principle. We're having a hang up on how this should be handled. Here, okay. So, in my opinion, the way to deal with the issue that you're raising is not to have the government say people are not allowed to think these things, people are not allowed to do these things. The way to handle this is to make it so the government can act upon information it receives from people and trust friends and family to say, this guy is going to do something dangerous. Mm-hmm. Now, this has its own set of problems. It's what's called a red flag law, and it has its own set of problems. But it's better than having the government have the ability to say, you're not thinking the right things, because the government will always abuse that power. If a person's friends or family comes forward and says, this person has been radicalized to a dangerous extent, I want them to be interviewed by the police, or maybe have a warrant served on their home so we can make sure they're not building a bomb. I think that's at least somewhat reasonable. But just having the government have the ability to say, you're saying and thinking the wrong things, we're going to have you go to the counseling sessions.
Well, I don't know if that's how it works. Honestly, I genuinely don't particularly know how prevent works.
You should look into that and get back to us, because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
You honestly, please don't rely on me to know everything, because I just don't.
No, I don't know everything. I spend hours poring over this kind of shit. I don't know everything.
The true way of doing it is you know, having grassroots campaigns and actually going into the community and actually trying to you know, build bridges between communities and stuff.
So. I'm glad you said that, because I think that's a better solution than what I said. Unfortunately, that's one of those things that takes a long time to build. It's the best way. It's the best solution. But that kind of stuff, that's a long-term solution.
Yep.
Expose the government failings to ask for a vote. I am here to beg, to plead, to pray that our new Prime Minister understands how urgent this is. And while we've left it late, on the 5th of September, on that day, lays out concrete plans that will stop a sizable chunk of our population having genuine health risks because of lack of food and heat due to this horrible expense, and another sizable chunk of lower and middle earners from having a catastrophic impact on their standard of living.
What would you do?
I would redistribute money from taxation or government debt to lower and middle earners. Energy is a poll tax,
like a furlough scheme. I mean, you would.
No. I'll be very specific. You
Please.
Understand the nuances here.
Yeah.
I am deliberately being agnostic on the mechanism.
Okay.
The mechanism could be a social tariff. It could be freezing the price cap. It could be just over doubling what the handouts that were given in May were. I don't care, because if I come up with a specific solution, and I have ideas, and there are pros and cons to all of them, then what we get into is a debate over, does that solution work? That's irrelevant. This is not about the mechanics. This is about political will. So I would push the will, but that what we have to be plain on, energy is effectively a soft form of poll tax, because energy bills do not rise in proportion to income. The poorest decile do not pay a fraction of the top decile. Only very, very huge houses have really huge energy bills. Most, even you go into sort of, the top quarter of homes, they're not that much more than the bottom quarter. So it's a pretty flat rate bill. And therefore, we're going to have to do something that is effectively redistributive.
I respect this guy. Because he's able to remove his own pride and ego. He's got his own thoughts, but he's like, look, I'm not going to push my own idea, because regardless of how this gets done, it just fucking needs to get done. I respect
exactly, yeah. Yeah, and I respect him for literally opening this conversation by saying, I am impotent. I have no power. I don't know what to do, but I know something needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the problems in our current climate is that everybody thinks they have a solution, and everybody thinks that their solution is the best thing. And sometimes we just need the people that say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is it's a problem over here, not to the same extent, but I do think that's a problem over here as well. That's a pretty universal human thing, to be honest.
Yeah,
and like he says, it comes down to political will. Whatever the way is, you need the government to be willing to do it, which seemingly our government isn't.
Right. Yeah. The biggest thing is drop all the insane Ukraine policies. I mean, we know that insisting on buying our fucking oil from Ukraine instead of other cheaper places is driving up fuel costs. We know that the government shipping money to Ukraine to fucking engage in a proxy war is not good for inflation or government debt. All of this shit. Like, I'm sorry. Why is a Ukrainian more deserving of my tax dollars than me? Better yet, fuck me. I'm doing okay. Why is a Ukrainian more deserving of my tax dollars than the homeless fucking veteran who has PTSD in one leg? What about that guy?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go too far into Ukraine because I don't know too much about it, but all I'm going to say is I can't even imagine living in a country that's being invaded. Like, it's just, I just can't even imagine it. That's literally the only thing I have to say. I don't know what they should do about it. I don't know how they should help them, but I can't imagine being in that situation. It must be truly terrifying.
It's like,
well, yeah, there's no possible reasonable contention there. My heart does bleed for people who are afflicted by war. My thing is, it's like, look, I understand your country's at war, and I understand you could really use our help, but the lifeboat can only take so much. It can only hold so many people, and it can only withstand so many punctures. And my government, I'm just going to speak for my government sending $40 billion to Ukraine was a hole we couldn't afford.
Yeah. Well, especially since it was really just a smokescreen for money laundering anyway.
Especially because of that. I don't believe for a second if $2 billion of that actually made it to the Ukrainian people to provide real world relief, I would be fucking amazed.
Yeah, it's like, but you know that it didn't, though, because precedent has been set by them, like with the bailouts and stuff, and that stupid tree that I was telling you about in that park for $125,000, and it ended up in a dumpster.
Yeah. So, Mason, we got to tell you, we need you to understand how stupid our politics are, Mason. You think your politics is stupid. Listen to this thing. Caitlin, tell them about the tree.
Yeah, okay. So when, that huge thing with the Lehman Brothers back in 2008 when they went belly up and the government had to bail everybody out.
Yep, they did the bank bailout bill, yep.
Yeah. There was a whole $125,000 that was given to a government program, quote unquote, to save this rare bush in a park. $125,000 for these people to go out and get this bush from this park so that it could be preserved. And come to find out, it ended up getting thrown in a dumpster a few miles away. And the people who were a part of the conservatory organization that were in charge of preserving this thing got to use the money for whatever and, not actually do their job, and come to find out they were actually a part of something else in the government that was just a clusterfuck of unraveled yarn, financially speaking. They didn't know where the fuck the money actually went to.
And this is how money laundering in the United States works. They pack these bills, hundreds of pages in this fucking spending bill, and it covers, it's $1 trillion worth of spending. $20,000 here, $100,000 there, 50 grand here, $1 million over there, and no one can trace where this shit ends up because it's a money laundering scheme. It's a shell game. They're fucking wasting our money so they can pay back their friends for political favors.
I know nothing about that, but
I know you're Brits. Where this is a USA citizens ranting about USA citizens problems thing. I just have to rant about it because it disgusts me.
Yeah,
that money. My father, just as an example, worked fucking 60 years. Hardworking, honest, dedicated American, military vet. He never made 100 grand in his life. 150 grand would have been an absolute life-changing amount of money for my father at any point in his life. And our government just pisses that. They don't even look at it. It's fucking pennies to them. They just shit it away on any fucking random thing. It disgusts me at a fundamental level.
I love Americans. I love it. You have to be the best at everything. You have to win, even if it's our politicians are stupider than yours. Just how ingrained the competitiveness of Americans is. Well, you think your politicians are stupid? You should see how stupid our politicians are. They're way more stupid than yours.
Right. It's like you should see how disgusting they are, because it's
look. American exceptionalism is a thing, and that runs to every aspect of our culture and society, including exceptionally stupid politicians.
Yep, the pendulum swings in both directions, people.
Exactly. Oh, God. Anyways, all right, let's get back to Mason's country's problems.
Takes money away from the highest earners that comes from taxation, or takes money from government debt, and it gives it to those people who will not be able to afford this.
But
and it's James, I've just been working out a stat, and I'm about to put something on social media, so I'm going to give you an exclusive on it. We both talk a lot.
It's a clash.
So, in May, the predicted rise in the price cap that the government held was just over 40%, taking an October bill to 2,800. But here's the crucial bit of that people aren't saying. In May, we had 6 monthly price caps. So that help was to last from October until April, when the predicted October to April rate was 2,800, or up 40%. Ofgem, and we objected to this, and put in a consultation objected, has moved it to 3 monthly so that firms don't go bust to help with their cash flow. So we now have a 3 monthly price cap. The projected January price cap is up another 50% on top of the 80%, taking a typical bill to £5,386 pounds a year pro rata. Now, if you average that over the 6 months, that means instead of the 40% rise that was predicted when the help came in, we're now looking at 121% rise over the same period. Instead of £2,800, we're now looking at £4,450 for a typical home.
Almost double what they predicted.
Right. £1,600 pro rata over that period on the help that was announced in May. That is the scale of the problem. Now, when you remember that a typical new full state pension is just over £9,000 on the new system, £7,000 on the old system, and we're talking about 5,000 bills, and pensioners tend to use more, never mind the fact those on universal credit get less, you can see why this is just simply mathematically unaffordable for the lowest. There is no cutting back. There is no money-saving expert. You could put me, someone who's been doing this for 20 years, into one of those households and do every bit of magic and trick in the book, and I would not even get close to scratching the sides of what is needed here.
Yep.
Oh, the passion with which he spoke at the end of that, then.
Yep.
No.
And he's right. And this is one of the reasons it is so condescending and shitty when news channels have these fucking people on and they're like, well, you could make sure you don't have any food waste. You could buy an electric car. You could weatherize your home. You could suck my cock, you fucking peasant. It's like, go fucking die in a fire.
I think it doesn't. I mean, when you hear about it on a macro scale, it sounds insane anyway. But when you actually hear like the human story, so James, who was the host in that clip, I heard a caller that talked to him not long ago, and it was a mother. She was a single mom, and she was talking about how like she's working and stuff, and she just cannot afford to feed her children. They're eating one meal a day. She can't afford to feed herself. She said she was literally eating her children's leftovers. Like what they were leaving behind is what she was eating because she can't afford to feed them, even with a full-time job. And that's insane. And when you actually look at it on a human level, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And honestly, to be frank, it's one of the reasons why, yes, I know politics matters, but it's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like hearing about it, because it's just depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's why I switched Adventurous Publications, the channel, to talking about politics, is because the reason the world is in the state it's in is because first world countries have gotten used to a high standard of living where they're very comfortable, and comfortable people become apathetic. Yes. And they stop engaging with the problems that do exist. They either get so comfortable that and that creates an artificial need for conflict in many people, and so they focus on artificial or unimportant problems, man-spreading, or they just they choose to live in a rosy world where everything is pineapple and mimosa, and they completely forget there's genuine problems in the world, and they're completely uninvolved in politics or how to get solutions for those problems. And I can't be part of that. I have to try to get people to care. I have to get information out to people so that something lights a fire under the people who are apathetic, so they fucking pay attention and find out what's going on and fucking do something.
My problem is that I don't know what there is to do. Honestly, I mean, to be brutally honest, one of the reasons that I've been terrified of doing this is I genuinely don't want to step out of line and talk about things that I don't know about, like with the prevent thing, where I might have given you a completely false image of how that works, right? And you might clip that bit of conversation out, and someone might come across that and be like, this guy, he's just spreading false information, and that's one of the reasons that it terrifies me doing this, is that I don't want to be an information giver. This is one of the reasons why when I do videos on my channel, when I do author tube videos, I am not telling people this is the best way to write a story. This is how, giving writing advice, because I don't feel like that's my place, and I'm genuinely terrified with us talking about fucking issues that matter rather than doing how would you describe that. I'm genuinely terrified of saying something that is categorically wrong and possibly even harmful.
Well, I mean, because the thing is, sometimes the only thing that you can do in these kind of situations, if you're not able to actually like physically get out there and do anything about any of this, sometimes the best thing that you can do is to just give knowledge, even if you're just putting the information out there. Because like with the prevent thing, you putting the information out there sparked in us, the initiative to go and actually research it. Even though there will be people that will, just take it on face value because they're the kind of people that just read like, the top sentence of a headline and automatically assume everything that's in the article, because there are people like that. However, a lot of people forget about the fact that knowledge really is power. That's not just a saying.
Yeah, it's not trite. Well, it is. It is trite, but it's true.
Right. Yeah. Knowledge really is power, because then it can be applied practically. People can understand it, and then it can become wisdom so that more mistakes aren't repeated, or people actually get the help that they need.
Right.
Yeah. So, the more that we do things like this, and that's another reason why I think, Zack, you taking this channel in the direction you're taking it is a beneficial thing, and us doing this, like with the, conversation we had before, the fact that we are able to come at it from multiple sides of, and have such a different dynamic and viewpoint on everything is really beneficial, because that in itself is doing something, because it tells people, hey, we might not necessarily agree on everything, because all three of us are individual people, but we're able to still have civil discourse and look at everything from all angles and still be friends at the end of the day.
Well, I just want people who are watching this to, I want to state publicly that you please, going forward, don't look at these videos and see me as the voice of the left, or just like, like the representative of the left in Team Adventurous, because I'm not. I'm just an individual, and frankly, I am nowhere near as educated as I would like to be, and I genuinely, I don't want people to look at me for fucking political guidance, because I would never have any aspiration to be a public leader, because I'm perfectly willing to throw my hands up and say I don't know.
And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're still a good sounding board and a good interlocutor for these discussions, because you provide a different viewpoint and it creates interesting conversation.
Yeah, I understand that. Like I say, I just wanted to state on the record that I don't want people to watch this and be like, okay, so you've got Zack and Kate there, and then you've got Mason as the voice of the left, because that's not what I want to be at all.
Right, and that's fair. That's fair. Even though you're definitely left of us, you don't want to purport to be your side's spokesperson or mascot in our team dynamic. That's perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, because really, and like me too, even though in a sense that I don't really consider myself to be an expert on things, even though there are a lot of things that I'm knowledgeable on. Really, I think the most beneficial way to do things like this is just present yourself in a way where you're pointing people to go and investigate things for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to, we got time to do like one more line of conversation, and I want to run this video by you, Mason. It's from the same guy who just listened to, but it's on a totally different subject. So for context, Mason, the title of this video is "Let's Check In on Modern Art."
Oh God. Oh, this one. Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, it's that time once again. Let's check in on modern art. Whereas
I feel like that music at the beginning was from Epidemic Sound.
I don't know where the music is from, but he has that going to like this nice, cool, like digital vaporwave-esque. I don't know if you know what vaporwave is.
I feel like I might have actually used it. Like genuinely, I feel like I might have used it on one of the TalkTube adverts. I'm not sure which one it was. No, actually, if it was the song I'm thinking of, I think I might have used it on the Ultra Satisfaction DX900 advert. Actually, songs from Epidemic Sound drive me crazy. There's the Costa that I go to. There's this song that comes on, and it's like an acoustic song with somebody singing over it. But obviously on Epidemic they offer like the instrumental versions of songs, and this song comes on when I'm sitting in Costa, and it's like a song that I've heard on Epidemic Sound that I've used in a video, and I know exactly what video it is, and I can't not hear it when it's on. Being a content creator has broken me.
Yes.
Trash being presented as modern art numerous times before. Now they've taken it one step further by using trash to obscure and denigrate actual works of art. This is Carnarvon Castle, 1815-19, by Anthony Van Dyke Copley Fielding. A bad quality internet image doesn't do it justice, but wow, I mean, look at the light. I'd like to take a closer look at this.
I swear I'm not doing this to fuck with you, Mason.
Man, it's like
right here.
Man, but from an artist's perspective, as somebody who paints, getting light like that is fucking hard.
I'd like to soak in its full majesty. Well, you can't because some idiots dumped a load of cardboard boxes in front of it. No, there hasn't been a delivery truck accident. The bin men haven't forgot to show up. This is supposedly a work of art. Take a look at the jaw-dropping artistry, skill and precision it took to create this masterpiece.
And for context, Mason, this is just a video of a dude with a bunch of trash bags dumping a bunch of cardboard boxes in front of this painting. Literally, it's literally like at the end, it's like 12 feet tall of boxes. Well, maybe not 12, maybe 7 or 8 feet tall of boxes. And it's just like, I mean, there's got to be like thousands of cardboard boxes there.
Cardboard boxes.
Okay, I have thoughts so far, but let's get through it first.
Boxes willy-nilly all over the floor out of trash bags.
Basically, all the cardboard sections are die cut by a factory, and then subsequently I have to fold up all those kind of shapes together and glue them together with hot glue.
Right, so essentially he glued some factory-made cardboard boxes together. Wow, Michelangelo, eat your heart out. This isn't art, this is the desecration of art. This is vandalizing beauty. Art critic Alexander Adams wrote of his horror at discovering what the Museum of Wales had done. The boxes touch the frame and the glazing of the painting. The pile of boxes is an intervention by someone designated an artist, invited to interfere with a handsome painting. The activist staff of museums today will not allow you to enjoy art of the past. They will employ artivists to degrade art, to embarrass its pretensions towards profundity, sublimity, and aesthetic rapture, which are undercut by interventions that prevent us from engaging with art to which we respond warmly. New art that we do not respect is used as a tool to separate us from old art we do respect. The cardboard boxes are supposed to represent a protest against the local council building houses, once again stripping art of its authentic, true purpose. Beauty for beauty's sake alone, and merely hijacking it as a vehicle for a tedious political message, while obscuring and replacing actual art. Go to Tate Modern and you'll literally find scraps of metal dropped on the floor being described as art. But at least you know that the real art is safely ensconced in its own space away from all this at Tate Britain. Not so at the Museum of Wales, where they're so obsessed with making us feel ashamed of our heritage. They'll literally heap rubbish in front of a captivating old painting simply to taint and demean it, then pretentiously describe that defilement as a work of art, or as Adam calls it, humiliate, degrade, replace. The elite abusing the power of cultural institutions to signal what they think about the native population. Masters of the past did not disfigure or restrict access to other art. They simply made art that was more spectacular and accomplished than what came before. They could trump competitors by being better, shorn of skills, and able to create art, cut off from tradition, functioning as quasi-activists, artivism. Today's pseudo-artists are invited to beat artists of the past by physically preventing you appreciating that art. They do all this in the name of decolonizing art. What they're actually doing is recolonizing your culture. No white Westerner should ever be allowed to take pride in the achievement of their ancestors, and no white Westerner must ever be allowed to authentically engage with the bounty of beauty furnished by their forebears. Without
Thoughts so far, Mason?
Well, I have that. How long is left of the video?
6 more minutes.
Right. Okay. So I'm just hesitant about saying anything in case he has a point that runs counter to what I'm saying. Okay. So first off, I disagree that art as a whole is beauty for beauty's sake. I think that there is 100% art that is just beauty for beauty's sake, but I think a big chunk of art is the intention behind it is to make you think, and
that's fair.
I think when it comes to something like this, right? First off, the rubbish should 100%, in fact, 100% should not touch the painting. It shouldn't touch it physically at all, right? In terms of protest art and stuff like that, I definitely think it has a place. Now, what I would say is, okay, you can't make an installation like that and just have it just pop up out of nowhere, right? Because if you're going to if you're a tourist and you're taking a purposeful trip to the Museum of Wales and you want to see that painting and it's obscured, that's going to be super annoying, and that's wrong, right?
Right.
So I do think that an installation like this has potential value for a limited amount of time and with plenty of prior notice that it's going to happen, right? Because my first thought before they stated what the intention was, which in my opinion is kind of pointless anyway, right? Because I think when it comes to art and making and providing art that's supposed to make you think, it's kind of counterproductive for the artist to come forward and say, this is what I was intending, because you don't do that when you're writing a novel, or at least good authors don't. They leave it to the subtext to tell you what the meaning of the story is, and they leave it open to your interpretation. Now, my first thought about this when they first said it was, what if this is meant to be a statement about the waste of modern society obscuring the beauty of the past, right? Now, I think there's genuinely a place for that. And if it was, this is going to be an installation that's going to be here for, let's just name an arbitrary period of time, let's just say 2 weeks, right? It's going to be here for 2 weeks, and they put out prior notice 2 months in advance that we're going to have this exhibit, this installation here, and just so you know, don't make a purposeful trip to come see this painting because this installation is going to be here. And at the end of the day, I think that art in general is just, it's open to interpretation, and I think it should be left that way. I think there definitely is a purpose for this sort of thing, but I genuinely don't think it should just pop up out of nowhere. I don't think it should be there permanently, and I 100% don't think that it should actually touch the art that it's obscuring. I genuinely think that there is value in a bit of protest art that obscures an old painting if it's going to leave it open to interpretation and make you think, what's this saying? I genuinely think there's a value to that. Can I tell you a little anecdotal story, which isn't necessarily the same thing, but one of the reasons why this sort of thing is interesting to me is because perception changes over time, right? So where I live is an industrious place. It's well known for pottery, and the industry around here was massive. It was an industrial town, right? So when I was a teenager, there was an installation that was put in a local park towards the entrance of this local park, right? And it's this metal tree, okay? And it's got various work tools on the branches, and it's this like twisted metal tree, right? Now at the time when it first went up, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I'm like, you could have planted real trees there. There could have been some actual natural beauty to it. And I just didn't see the point, because when you're looking at it, you can see the places where they've welded the different bits of metal together. And I thought, that's ugly. Why have that there? These days, I actually quite appreciate that tree, because since I've grown up and matured and sort of grown to respect and love the history of my city, and I'm proud of the fact that we were an industrious city and that it was built on the back of hard-working manual laborers. I actually think that tree is pretty amazing, and the fact that you can see the welds, that in itself is sort of an artistic statement. That's showing you that's the workmanship on plain display. And so over time, my perception of that art has changed. So where I initially dismissed it as something that was unnatural and ugly, I now see as a symbol of pride. And I said a lot of things there, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, no need to apologize. There's a disconnect that we're having here. Well, disconnect's not the right word. The reason me and you have a different side in this particular discussion is that you are being far too gracious to the people who are doing these things. You are willing to entertain that these people are good intentioned and being genuine in their efforts to be an artist, which I don't believe at all. I do not buy for a second that this guy actually thinks that these boxes provide an interesting or insightful medium to provoke constructive thought. This guy is just someone who has zero talent and is mad that this thing that he wants to be able to do is out of his reach. And so he chooses to engage in a desecration of the craft rather than admit that he has no talent for it. He's petty and jealous. That's how I...
But now here's an interesting train of thought. You purport to be the sort of person, if I'm not mistaken, which I might be, but you purport to be the sort of person that can separate art from artist, right?
Yes.
So in this case, whether or not his intentions are genuine, isn't it more about what the audience of the piece takes away from it rather than whatever his intentions are? If I go to the Museum of Wales and I see these trash bags or cardboard boxes in front of this painting, and I think, I reckon that's a statement on modern waste obscuring the beauty of the past. doesn't that mean then that art, whether or not the artist had genuine intentions, whether he has any skill whatsoever, doesn't that mean that is art and does have value and does provoke thought?
I wouldn't agree with the art aspect. I would agree with you on everything except the art thing, because I have a much stricter definition of what actually constitutes art. I would agree with you on the other points. Here's my counter to that is we know, because art galleries, since modern art has gone into vogue, the average citizen visiting art galleries has dropped exponentially.
Yeah.
And the average person, when asked about modern art, they say it's bollocks. It's bullshit. It makes no sense. It's stupid. We know that from survey after survey after survey. And art critics who don't have their fucking nose up the fucking fart box of modern art institutions say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would agree with you that if people genuinely went towards this art exhibit and had constructive thoughts about it, it would be a productive and worthwhile endeavor. But 99% of people are going to look at a pile of trash in front of a painting and see a pile of trash.
Yeah, and I can tell you, okay, as somebody who understands how museums and things like that work, because my grandfather did work for a museum, this was done deliberately.
Caitlin, don't even cite your grandfather. You have direct experience in this. You changed the name you used publicly because you tried to be part of the art community. Rely on your first-hand experience. Don't rely on your grandpa.
Well, not just that. Well, I'm just saying, for him to get that in the museum, he would have had to have connections with the curator, because museums are not supposed to put things that are over a certain amount of time old as stuff in their exhibits unless it is a modernist exhibit. So in order for this to be placed in that particular exhibit with historical paintings, that was a deliberate action on the part of the curator and this person.
Well, yeah, but Caitlin, what's your point there? Because that goes without.
My point here is it's purposeful vandalism.
But my point is still, I genuinely don't think that it should have. I don't think it should have been vandalism. I don't think that it should have touched the painting at all. I think it should have been placed strategically to. If you were going to do it at all, I think it should have been placed strategically to obscure the view, but not to touch the art at all, because you can't be doing that.
It shouldn't have been in the exhibit at all, because it's not old enough to be in the exhibit. They are in a museum, not an art gallery.
Yeah, I can see your point there. Again, I don't think that it should be there permanently whatsoever. Anyway, I do still think that there is a potential value for not this necessarily, but for something like this. I do think there is a potential value in doing something like this for a limited amount of time in a way that doesn't damage the art. And as for
an actual art gallery, not a fucking museum, okay? And it was also then on the curator's part.
Kate, don't. He doesn't interrupt you. Don't interrupt him. Come on.
But then if you do it in an art gallery, you do unless you're doing it. Okay, if you're doing it in an art gallery that has old paintings, then you again, the problem here is that I'm looking at it from that point of view of modern waste obscuring old beauty, but which is, most likely not the intention that he had. But if you do it in an art gallery, you potentially lose the weight of the meaning, because you are probably putting it in front of modern paintings.
Not necessarily, but I see your point.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said, if you do it in an art gallery that has old paintings, then you can have the potential that you can have the same effect. Just quickly as well, on your point of 99% of people would look at this and say it's bullshit. I still stand by the point that I think that is an issue with the audience, not necessarily. I'm talking about this from a perspective of not talking about this specific artist or this specific installation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take, for example, highbrow philosophical fiction. Well, you know what? Let's use our friend Pei, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Stuff that he's writing about. A large chunk of people may or may not go into one of Pei's books and come out and be like, "This guy's just like that." He's not, it's, I don't know. They would look at it and not find any meaning in it because they don't necessarily understand where Pei is coming from. They don't understand the message that he's trying to portray. So, but just because a large chunk of the audience of Pei's novel may or may not come away thinking, well, that had, that wasn't interesting, that was boring, that had no meaning to it, they're potentially missing the deeper meanings that Pei has instilled in his works that would be picked up by people who appreciate existentialism and philosophical thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me give you let me give you the counter to that. Okay, I would posit to you that it is extremely likely that if 100 people read Pei's novel, at least 50 of them would come away from it saying there was something interesting or of value there. Now, and the exact number doesn't necessarily matter. Let's say it's 10%. Let's say it's 50%. Let's say it's 90%. That number isn't necessarily what you want to focus on. What you want to focus on is the principle that artists should be responding to what the public says about art and how the public is talking about art. It is the job of an artist to make art that is meaningful to people. And so it doesn't matter if the artist made something and let's say he does not express even though this artist flat out is saying what he tried to mean by it, which I guess you missed it. He's protesting the fucking.
I did hear him saying it.
Yeah.
But my point earlier was that I don't think he should have anyway.
I agree with you. And the reason that you shouldn't is so that you can hear people's unbiased, unpolluted thoughts on what your art means. And if a lot of people pull genuine meaning from your art, you know you're heading in the right direction or doing something valuable as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that most people look at modern art and they say, this is bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. And modern art isn't limited to these assholes who throw trash on the museum floor and call it art. It can be paintings where this is a real painting. Mostly white on this side, stripe of, I can't remember the color, stripe of color down the middle, white on the other side. And they call that a painting and it's modern art and it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like stripe of color, the only thing that is going to mean to anyone is the basic human emotions or any specific memories that person associates with that color. And that is not a message that is worth taking the time to say this is art to put forward. That is something anyone can go and experience anywhere. They can buy a Sharpie and do that themselves. Artists have value because they take time to construct elaborate, thought out constructs, whether it's a novel or a painting or a piece of music. Mm-hmm. They create something complex and interesting that has layers that can mean multiple things to multiple people. And that's what makes an artist, and that's what makes art. A pile of trash is a fucking pile of trash, regardless of where it is.
Yeah. Because what makes them an artist and thus makes what they produce to be art is the fact that they're able to draw from their own original imagination and creativity in order to create something, not like some dude who goes and puts a green dot in the middle of an unprimed canvas and sells it for $4,000. The art there was not in the painting itself. It was in the fact that he convinced somebody to pay $4,000.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's just the way that things work, man. If someone is willing to pay for something, then that's just, if someone's got $4,000 to throw away on a paint on a blank canvas with a green dot in it, you know what? Good for that guy who sold it, in my opinion.
But really,
I'm not arguing with you on
that. I
that.
don't even remember.
Well, look, Mason. I'm not saying that people don't have the right to produce bullshit art. What I am saying is I'm tired of a certain subset of the population trying to prop up said bullshit art as the new standard of beauty. Because it's not just that they're creating the bullshit, it's that they're trying to gaslight people into thinking that the bullshit is legitimate and just as artful and talented and important as I don't know, Starry Night by who was that?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, yeah. Starry Night by Van Gogh. A, it's aesthetically beautiful. B, there's valid, transcendent beauty to it, and it created a whole new style of art. Incredibly important painting.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that this guy who just threw trash all over the museum floor is on the same level as that?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yourself.
Absolutely not. The same way that I don't think that whoever created the metal tree that I was talking about is on the same level as a Van Gogh either. But
the metal tree, to give that guy credit, that still takes a decent level of talent and artistry.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But you could line 5 people up in front of it and they'd all have completely different opinions. Art is subjective. The interpretation of art is subjective. And I don't believe that any of us have the right to say what is and isn't art. We have the right to voice our personal opinions on what is and isn't good art. The same way we have the right to voice our opinions on what is and is not good literature or good music. But I don't think that they should be. I don't think they should be discounted whatsoever because, I don't think they should be discounted wholeheartedly because, I mean, we don't know that there's not somebody out there who might come up with some really innovative piece of modern art that is like mind blowing and creates a whole new genre of art and has something to say. I look. Do I think? I mean. Throwing out. Go on.
Well, I just want to. I'm going to throw you a bone here. Banksy is the person you're talking about. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
There you go. Brilliant modern artist. He used a new medium, graffiti, to produce meaningful, transcendent art that had. It was like you said. It had a clear message that the artist clearly intended, but he's anonymous. No one knows who he is. So clearly he doesn't go around telling people this is what you should think about it, but people get the message consistently because his art is capable of speaking for itself. And that's part of what makes good art. And one more point that I wanted to raise is I don't believe that any one person has the right to say what is and isn't art. The way that we as a people should come to a decision about what is and isn't art is a mass cultural consensus, because that is the best way to come to some kind of reasonable, unified opinion on subjective matters. If 90% of people agree that something isn't art, I think that we should be able to put it to rest and say, okay, yeah, that doesn't qualify.
I think this just taps into. I think it taps into a fundamental difference that we have anyway in terms of, and I noticed this when we were talking literature. I know how much you and Kate just despise like pulp fiction, basically. Like
I would say that. I've read some good Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just talking about what, like, you know, what Kate would refer to as like shake and bakes and stuff.
Okay, that's not quite Pulp Fiction, but yes, I understand.
Well, I mean, like the Hallmark romance BS or like Lifetime mommy porn movies. Those are what I mean by shake and bake.
Yeah, and I completely understand where you're coming from, but I also there's a market for it. People enjoy it, and so people should still just make it. In my opinion,
that's not what we're saying. Mason,
I know. I'm
like,
not trying to say you're saying anything.
What? Because my thing about it is, and a lot of people get me wrong. If that's the kind of quote unquote art you want to create, okay, whatever. It's about the same as somebody taking those miniature models of houses that are pre-built and painting them as a hobby. That is the level of creativity that is required in order to produce those. That's fine. If that's what makes you happy and you happen to make a little bit of change on the side doing that, great. But be honest about it. Don't call yourself that, someone in the same league as Jane Austen. You're not.
Right. You're barely an author, in my opinion. What you really are is a printing press.
You're a hobby painter. And that's fine.
Well, no, they're not a hobby painter because they're not painting. They're producing written works, but they're also not artistic, original, thoughtful written works. Therefore, they are a printing press.
Well, I mean, what I mean by hobby painter is they're following a paint by numbers.
I know what you mean, Caitlin. I'm altering the metaphor to fit the fucking area of life we're in. Come on!
Yeah, when it comes down to it, do I think that this particular piece has value? Probably not. Do I think it had potential to have value? Yes, I do.
Potential unintentionally, maybe.
See,
what I'm saying is, from at its conception, like at the point of which, just before it got created, it had potential to have value. Once it was created, I don't think that value, like the potential value, was met.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll meet you halfway on that and say I do agree that the concept of protest art and the concept of art installations that are kind of meant to provide a critique on other art, that is a valid concept. You don't accomplish the goal that concept has a specific goal, and you cannot accomplish that goal with thousands of uniform cardboard boxes dumped in front of a painting. Humans are not that simple.
No, I agree.
Okay. I do want to get through the rest of this video because he makes some good points.
Constantly being made to feel self-conscious and guilty about.
Also, Paul, man, can you trim your mustache so that it's even across your lip? I can't stop staring at it through this whole fucking video, bro.
When is your doctor's appointment? My phone's dead, so I have no idea what time it is right now.
It is 1:46 my time, so
you have to be there at 3:30.
Yeah, I have to be there at 3:30. Yes, so I'm gonna cut this off at 3. But honestly, we'll probably just wrap it up after the end of this video.
Yeah,
because I'm hot. I'm literally sticky. I need a shower. Like, it's the fucking mugginess is.
Yeah, I'm knackered after my retail torture too.
Yeah.
Molest your eyes with this abhorrent cack. No. All the senses must be flooded with psychic pollution.
Caitlin loves some good cack.
Crash lying on the floor is the audible detritus of the sounds of social justice. Blaring audio of African singing and chanting is so loud that it echoes throughout the entire gallery. You will not be permitted silence or retreat. Your masters insist you cannot evade silent voices.
He's reading from an article
will be
right
imposed
now.
on you, as Gramsci recommended.
Again,
place for
time and place, I think, for that sort of thing.
Yeah. And listen, I think that I've heard, for example, some indigenous African tribes' chants for certain ritualistic purposes, some of their coming-of-age ceremony chants, some of their chants where they're praying to their various gods, some of their war chants when they're getting ready for battle. They're actually kind of beautiful, but in a barbaric, brutal kind of way. Well, depending on the chant, some of them were quite melodic and actually kind of like dance-worthy. But it just depends. But they, again, time and place. I don't.
If it's somewhere that's typically supposed to be for like silent contemplation, then that's probably not the place.
Right.
Exactly.
At least without without prior arrangement.
I'll tell you how they could do this concept that it wouldn't be intrusive and destructive to the importance of art. Walking into the museum, hey, we're doing a audio exhibit to highlight indigenous culture. Would you like a pair of headphones playing African war chants? And you can walk through the museum listening to African war chants or tribal chants or whatever, and people could pick and choose. And a lot of people would probably pick them because, hey, you're going to an art gallery to experience art. And so the art gallery is saying that we're offering you this chance to alter the way you experience the art today. A lot of people would take that. But imposing it through the fucking facility's loudspeakers is bullshit.
Because what this tells you right here, and I'm going to go back to this, the curator for this museum is a piece of shit. They're lazy. They do not know how to do their job.
Yeah.
They don't.
So much inflammatory language.
It's like, well, I'm just saying.
Burn!
Fire this person.
Subvert every activity in the extension of revolutionary consciousness raising. Humiliate, degrade, replace. In other rooms of the gallery, Western art, British art, has simply been removed and replaced with bronze heads of black men, photographs of random black women, along with slips of paper propagandizing you with anti-racism regime talking points, along with walls of text lecturing you about the trauma of slavery. Yes, this in the National Museum of Wales. You're not here to contemplate art. You are here to be confronted with instruction disguised as starting the conversation.
But this isn't an art gallery. This is a museum, which is a place for learning.
That's true, but what kind of a museum is it? And especially, what kind of instruction is any given place supposed to have? And is the instruction being given culturally and socially relevant and not relevant, not just relevant, but oh god, the word's slipping my mind. God damn it, applicable is not quite the right word.
Appropriate.
Huh?
Appropriate.
Thank you. Appropriate. Yes, it's like, listen, slavery bad. We get it. Literally no one in Western society, except for like the 5 racists that still exist, actually believe that anyone who's brown or black deserves to be enslaved. And we all agree it was bad. Stop beating us over the head with it. The only places where you can still find modern day slavery are black and brown countries. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Also, like, why don't you use, historical photos? Like, why did they need to be,
That's another good point, Kate. Yeah. It's like, if you want to highlight black struggles and the importance of acknowledging the interesting intricacies and inherent transcendent value of certain black cultures, why didn't you use actual historically relevant and insightful photos instead of just random black lady looking at the camera?
See, I think this is one of my problems, is that I think about things too much. I think you're probably right, or maybe giving too much credit to things, because I'm like, well, perhaps it's to highlight the fact that the struggles with racism isn't over in today's modern age. So
yeah, but if you have like a picture of a happy person, okay, any race at all, you put up there your talking points about how this person is having racial struggles or whatever, historically speaking, as a way that it's, in such a way that it's supposedly it's still going on. How much weight is behind your argument exactly? If you're not using photos that evoke the emotion and image of the struggle you're trying to portray.
I agree with that.
Well, and again, not only that, how much of an issue is it really? Look, hang on. At some point, we have to say, okay, this thing is done and over with. Let's move on. I agree that there's still people who suffer from generational fallout of slavery because the impact is going to echo forward for a few more generations at least. I'm not arguing that. What I'm saying is you're not going to get over your generational strife by making your entire identity about bitching about generational strife.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, unfortunately, racism hasn't gone away. It's not over and done with. Take, for example, the other day, there was a woman on LBC called... I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her name.
I saw your tweet about it. I saw your tweet about this, yeah.
Yeah, it's her name is Sangita Merska, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so if I'm butchering that, I'm really sorry. But she was talking on the radio about free school meals because a lot of children in a lot of households cannot afford, because of the issues that we've talked about, cannot afford to adequately always feed their children. And obviously, therefore, can't necessarily pay for them to go and eat at school. So free school meals is something that's been a big issue over here. Now, regardless of how I feel on that topic, I don't want to go into that. But now the issue here, right, is that this woman called up Sangita's show, and she told Sangita in no uncertain terms that she should shut up and that she had no right to talk about what goes on in our country because she is not British. She said that she was not. She had no right to talk about what goes on in our country because she was born in Africa. Which, by the way, she said, how are things in your country? Talking about Africa as a country, that country that we all know called Africa. And she said that the problem, one of the problems we're having is that people like Sangita and a well-known footballer called Marcus Rashford, those people try to tell the government what to do in a country that they have no right to comment on. Now, leaving aside Sangita, who I do personally feel is British, Marcus Rashford, despite being black and despite what this woman thinks, was born in the UK and is just as British as she is. Now, I know that you guys won't argue with this. That's 100% fucking racist.
Well, yeah.
And that's proof right there that racism hasn't gone away and it's still entrenched.
Okay, I have some thoughts about this. I will agree that I didn't hear what this lady said, but I'm going to take what you're saying at face value. I will agree that that behavior is racist. However, I understand the sentiment behind it. There's a better way to approach it that isn't racist, but I understand the sentiment behind it. You have to consider someone's cultural identity and someone's ethnic and national identity. Britain is a predominantly white country, and I think that it has the right to stay a predominantly white country, just as the United States of America has the right to stay predominantly white. Just as Nigeria has the right to stay predominantly white, as they just outlawed any color other than black being in their advertisements. Nigeria outlawed white models on their public TV. You have a right to preserve the racial and cultural heritage of your country. That's not up for debate. Now, it's also true that racism's fucked up. And just because someone is of a different race does not mean that they don't have a right to contribute to the conversation, especially if they're doing it in good faith. Especially if they're doing it in good faith, which I believe that gal was, based on what I know, which is very little. So, but
she was born in Africa, but she also moved here at a very early age and was educated in this country. And in my opinion, is every bit as British as I am. I'm proud to live in a multicultural society.
Yeah, that's the I lost track of my train of thought, and that's the point. Thank you for bringing it back up. Another point I wanted to make is, now I'm going to translate this to this side of the pond. We have a thing called naturalized citizens. You immigrate here for whatever reason. You take the citizenship test. You pass the interview, and you're now a citizen of the United States. I don't care where you come from. If you go through the naturalization process, you're now a U.S. citizen. You are now American. Yep. And I believe that that's reasonable and legitimate, and those people have the right to vote in our society. I'm sure that Najita probably has the right to vote. I hope I got it right.
Sorry.
Sangeeta, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, I'm sure. Does she? Correct me if I'm wrong. She has the right to vote there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's fine and that's fair. But at the same time, I do understand wanting to preserve a cultural and ethnic heritage, because we have a right to preserve our heritage. Now, the way that person went about it was obviously racist and fucked up, but I understand their motivations. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with maintaining a cultural identity. I don't see how Sangeeta advocating for free school meals. I don't see how that is negated by the fact that she wasn't born in Britain.
Right. Yeah. Because it's not.
And I agree with you. Like I said, that person who called in, they were definitely misguided and ignorant in their actions and motivations. Well, I misspoke. Not their motivations. I believe that. Well, I don't know that, because I don't have to talk to the person to know what their motivations were. So they were potentially ignorant and misguided in their motivations, but definitely in their actions, because it's not okay to be an asshole to people on the premise of race or where you're from, for that matter, as long as the person isn't doing anything wrong.
I mean, like, you could potentially, and I definitely don't agree, you could potentially try to understand where she's coming from in terms of saying somebody who wasn't born here doesn't have as much right to tell politicians what to do. Now, I don't agree with that, but I can see how she arrives at that. But when she reveals herself as the racist that she is, when she brings Marcus Rashford into that argument, because he was born here.
Right.
So she's classing him as African because he's black.
Right.
Right. And the fact is, there are some black people who not only were born there first generation, but there are some black people in your country who have been there for multiple generations. That's the reality. And it's certainly not fair or reasonable in any way to say that someone who is black isn't British if they've been there for 10 fucking generations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, plus my opinion is like, oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying I agree with that. That was all.
Oh, but what I was gonna say was, like, if the person, they're a citizen, they're paying taxes like everybody else is having to, they have a right to have an opinion.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. Plus, just my 2 cents. I think school meals should be free everywhere. Honestly.
I have mixed feelings about that. But I would lean towards agreement, because it would be hypocritical for me to have survived off school lunches for a little bit and not support them.
Right, because there are lots of people out there who can't afford to feed their kids. So
and there's also. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Taking that out of account, yes, there's people that struggle and can't afford. There's also people that are just shit parents as well.
Right, yeah.
And their kids shouldn't have to suffer not eating because their parent doesn't care enough to provide for them.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate discussion of that we have to look at why the kid isn't being fed. If it's negligence, the kid should be removed. If it's the parent's inability to provide, removal is an option, but usually that's more of a societal problem. That's a whole different fucking discussion. We were originally talking about art. Let's get back to
A lot of struggle session. You are here to forcibly consume the message.
The message.
The centerpiece of the exhibition focuses on decimating the legacy of Sir Thomas Picton, a Welsh officer of the British Army who fought in the Napoleonic Wars and was killed during a bayonet charge during the Battle of Waterloo. Once revered for his bravery and courage, exalted as a legend of British history, the Museum of Wales is hell-bent on burying that legacy in a metaphorical, muddy, unmarked grave, with Picton's portrait having originally been removed from public display at the behest of deranged Black Lives Matter activists. By ripping Picton out of his historical context, blaming him for the slave trade, and then in turn blaming you, the insufficiently repentant white privileged visitor. They've literally surrounded his portrait in a cheap packing frame as part of their bid to reframe history, to suggest Picton's legacy deserved.
And I assume you would be principally consistent, Mason, and say that that's fucked up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I had mixed feelings on the whole bloody stupid statue issue. Because, I had mixed feelings on that, but I think in the context of it being a museum and stuff like that, I feel like that's
I think on the statue issue, I think a reasonable compromise that everyone should have been able to get behind is, if this person was associated with the slave trade, if they actually did commit atrocities against anyone, let's take it out of the public square and put it in a museum.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Be hidden in the basement, ignored, forgotten, gathering dust. The portrait is polluted by an explainer, another act of contextual shaming. It is surrounded by descriptions of punishment in Trinidad at the time. There is no mention of comparable treatment of criminals in Great Britain at that time, which is done to deliberately skew visitor understanding of Picton's governorship. This is an act of ritual humiliation, as primitive and as crude as you will ever see in a museum. It is also a flex, a chance for the elite to show their power by disposing of European art and replacing it with non-European art, by using museum resources to degrade a famous Welsh war hero. It echoes their intention for the population. They cannot help but announce in advance what they will subject you to. Strangely, there's no mention whatsoever of the West African and Barbary Arab slave trade. Gee, I wonder why.
And this is the point that I just want to drive home a little bit. This is one reason I absolutely can't stand the modern left, and this goes across the pond, both sides of the pond. The modern left likes to omit from history the African and Muslim slave trade that has existed as long as people have been living in those areas, which is forever.
Yeah.
Pretending that white Europeans own the concept of slavery is blatantly and willfully ignorant of human history, and I will not stand for it.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that sort of thing, so I'm not going to comment on it.
Fair enough.
It's a crime of which the entire world is guilty.
I think just slavery in general is pretty fucked up, and I think we all agree on that. So
yeah.
Oh, no questions. It's if there's a top 5 human evils, slavery's in the top 5 easily. It's abhorrent. No fucking.
We can safely make a broad statement that Team Adventurous disapproves of slavery on a fundamental level.
Listen, slavery bad. That's a hill I'll die on. Okay.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I'm going to go on out on a limb here and take the radical position that I'm not necessarily okay with owning another person.
Right.
when when it comes down to it, am I 100% proud of the legacy of my country and my race? No, I'm not 100% proud of it. Do I think that it was all 100% terrible? No, probably not. No.
Exactly.
I also don't feel like I know enough about it, because just personally speaking, in high school, we were basically only taught about World War One and Two.
Yeah,
in history.
That's a similar problem over here. Is history class is largely a highlight reel instead of actually going through. Instead of being a highlight reel of microcosm periods like World War One and Two, history class should be, we're going to talk about this year range, and it should be like a 500-year range, and say this is what was going on. This was the politics and technology. This was the trend of human behavior. And this is how it led into the stuff going. And you should have like 3 months or so where you're talking about this 500-year block of history. And then the next 3 months, you move on to the next 500 years until you get to current events. That's what I think history class should be.
Yeah, well, this is one of the reasons I've always been confused as to why they don't teach politics in school. And I sort of understand. I understand like the basic principle of like, oh yeah, well, politics shouldn't be in school because teachers shouldn't be deciding on how to, on what kids believe. But it's fundamentally weird to me that so the voting age here is like 18. And it's fundamentally weird to me that we get pumped out of school and then asked to decide on a system in which we haven't been educated on.
Right. Right. And you can educate kids about politics without indoctrinating them. That's possible, despite what the left would love to fucking believe.
Well, and the another major point there is obviously I don't know how it works in America, but over here, go to a state-run school, like just a normal average school, like what I would have went to, they wouldn't teach politics. If I'd have gone to a private school, I bet you that it taught me politics there.
Yeah, same. No, it's the same here. If you go to a public school, you'll get some basic civics. Depending on what part of the country you're in, a lot of the time the basic civics you will get will not actually be relevant or applicable or actionable, or they'll be like relevant and applicable, but they'll be, this is the very most basicest part of this, and I'm not going to give you the 10 hours of context lecture that you would need to actually understand it.
Well, in my opinion, that's very deliberate too, because
I agree.
At the end of the day, a privately educated child who comes from a very privileged upper class background is probably more likely to vote a certain way, and so they are educated on politics. Whereas in someone from a working class background who goes to a state school is probably more likely to vote another way, and so they don't get taught.
That's true. And it is also true that the government will not give you the tools you need to properly curtail and fight against it.
Yep.
And so keep you stupid.
Yeah.
Yep.
They seek to diminish and desecrate a Welsh icon. Sir Thomas Picton has been cancelled. Before Picton got reframed, the museum produced and posted a video of a brown Muslim man slagging him off.
Felly, beth am I fynd I weld y so-called arwr yma te? Siwr o fod y portread fwyaf sydd yn yr amgueddfa ei hun. Ond, dim unrhyw darn o wybodaeth.
Once again, the elite using the human shield of minority groups to broadcast their values and what they think of you. As Adams points out, the gallery functions as an apologia for people who never even experienced slavery. It's organised by an elite who despise the indigenous people of Wales, whom they see as culpable for slavery. Adams suggests that the National Museum of Wales should be renamed the National Hall of Ritual Shaming.
And here's something, Mason. There, right now on screen, there's a video of, I don't know where this is, I assume it's in Britain, some white dude getting on all fours and kissing the boot of some black dude. And this is just so inherently repulsive to me. I can't fucking stand it. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, well, I don't trust images like that anyway.
I mean, it's a video. I could see the dude.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just not 100% willing to concede that it's probably not staged as propaganda.
I would disagree with you on that, but for the purposes of brevity and getting to my doctor's appointment, we're gonna move on.
I'm just gonna say, either way, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Because if it's the dude on the ground being sarcastic in doing that, it's gross. Or if he's doing it out of, being some kind of spineless cretin, it's gross.
And if it's a whole staged thing for the purpose of propaganda, it's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All around, it's disgusting.
There's literally no context in which a man should get down and kiss the shoes of another man. That's not something a man does.
Right.
Degrade, replace. The exhibition was created in alliance with the Sub-Sahara Advisory Panel, and the decision to cancel Picton was made by them too. Because obviously the National Museum of Wales should reflect the interests of Sub-Saharan Africans. I'm sure in Sub-Saharan Africa, their museums are full of exhibitions about the First Welsh War of Independence and the work of Dylan Thomas. We know why they do all this. Once moral standards are obliterated, the malaise of moral relativism takes hold. And the new moral compass becomes anything they say it is. Drag queen storytime, a progressive, enriching learning experience for children, for example. Similarly, once beauty standards are obliterated...
I just want to state I don't really have any problem with that.
That's another separate discussion that we will have at some point.
Yes.
Be called off. Actual skill.
What?
I said I'll dread that.
Good. I want you to.
Skill and artistry is no longer fundamental to the work of art. Its political message becomes the be-all and end-all. The art is merely a hastily constructed Trojan horse for the agenda, for the message. And that's why everything they produce is vile and ugly, because their agenda is vile and ugly, because they are vile and ugly. Ye shall know them by their fruit, and their fruit is as rotten as their black hearts. As Roger Scruton said, once we start to celebrate ugliness, then we become ugly too. The art, in their eyes, is the desecration of our heritage, the politically correct revision of our history, the ritual abasement of the native population. Humiliate, degrade, replace.
I don't even know what he means by native population when it comes to Britain.
What do you mean you don't know?
Who exactly is the native population of Britain as an isle that has been invaded and conquered time and time and time again over history?
Well, yeah, but just because it's been invaded and conquered time and time again doesn't mean it doesn't have indigenous people. I would say
that's what I'm saying. I don't know who that is.
Okay, so I would personally say that the indigenous people of Britain, certainly the Anglo-Saxons, they've been there for over 1,000 years. I cannot remember who was there before the Saxons. Well,
yeah, because you had the Celts. You had the Germanic and Celtic people.
Yep, the Germanic and Celtic people. And then they've been here. Those people are probably the people that had been here since people left Africa to come north. If that is indeed what happened, there's some contention in the scientific community about if that's how people actually got to Northern Europe. But we'll just run with that and say it is for the purpose of the discussion. It's very possible that the Germanic and Celtic people are the people that have been there the longest. And that's still, Scotland and Ireland, that's still the people who are largely in that part of the world. So they're the natives. Yeah. And the Anglo-Saxons have a solid argument for being the natives too, because again, they've been there for well over 1,000 years.
Yeah, because the oldest civilizations and languages in those parts, you have Gaelic, you have Irish, and you have Manx, because you had people on the Isle of Man, you had people in Ireland, and you had people in Scotland.
And then, of course, Old English came sometime after Gaelic was in vogue.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, you have to put it in a macro perspective. Yeah, people might be seeing at the minute that like there's a whether or not I agree, that people might say that there's an erosion of the native culture. Go back to when the Anglo-Saxons were coming over, people would have had that same argument. 1,000 years later, you're saying that they've been there long enough to be called natives. So in 1,000 years, the people that you're now saying are eroding the native culture will be the natives.
And see, that's an astute and interesting point. But by that same token, that fact doesn't change the fact that the people who are there currently have the right to attempt to preserve their culture and heritage.
And a more accurate statement would have been, people would have said that about the Normans, because Anglo-Saxon peoples came out of people that were already there.
That's not quite right, Kate, because the Anglo-Saxons came in. They were a little bit south of where the UK is in modern day times, and they came up and invaded the area that is now the UK, if I remember correctly.
Well, because you had Saxons and Normans were more a mixture of like French and Viking and other people that came in and invaded. And that's part of why Britain is like it is today, because of people like William the Conqueror.
Okay. And I think we should call it there because it's getting late.
We've gone later for sure, but like I said, I am hot as fuck. Take a cold shower before I go to my fucking doctor's appointment because I am fucking sticky as shit. And I'm gonna cut this live into 2 pieces and put it out as 2 videos tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was good, guys.
This was good. Our first one. Yeah.
So yeah, everyone, this has been Team Adventurous Talks Politics. I really hope someday we can get all 5 of the current members of Team Adventurous together and do, even if it's just a lighthearted content over on the other channel, getting all 5 of us together again to do a stream would just be great.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But this is the 3 active members of Team Adventurous. Mason in the Dark, check out his channel. He's in the description. Yeah. Kate, her channel's inactive, but she'll be doing stuff there at some point. My channel's not quite inactive, but highly slowed down. So really just pay attention to here and IYFA.
Yeah.
If you're a literature fan and you enjoy dark fantasy, keep an eye out because The Bleeding Ground Volume 5 is currently being written. So
you do still need to watch Mason's channel. He's active over on his. And IYFA Twitch. And Kate has a Kickstarter.
Yes, I do. I do have a Kickstarter for The World Next Door. Which is my real debut novel, and it's
because the other novellas.
Well,
I want to see Kate give a pitch meeting for The World Next Door.
Like what Ryan George did.
Yeah, I want to see. I want to see The World Next Door pitch to him.
That would be funny.
You know, that might actually be a great way to drum up donations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea, Mason. Yeah. Kate, actually do that and maybe replace the video on your Kickstarter that's currently there with that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
We should do that.
Okay, everyone. This has been Team Adventurous. Thanks for being here. All right. Okay, thanks. Bye. Done.